Laura, you just sent out another invitation to the meeting?
I did. I noticed that people weren't logging on and I got nervous.
Okay, I had trouble. I had to try twice.
I know. You're not the only one, so that's why I sent it out again. But it's the same meeting. It just
Okay.
yeah, thanks.
Don't you know I read my email right before meetings?
I appreciate
Actually,
that.
during meetings too.
All right, and right there at 6:30, we have Mr. Plumpy. I think that's the perfect signal to get things started. All right, welcome everybody to the June 10th, 2021 meeting of the Fairfax County Architectural Review Board. To conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effectuate both the emergency procedures authorized by FOIA, the ARB needs to make certain findings and determinations for the record. It's a bit cumbersome, so I ask you in advance for your patience and understanding. First, because each member of this ARB is participating in this meeting from a separate location, we must verify that a quorum of members is present and that each member's voice is clear and audible and that at an appropriate volume for all other members. Accordingly, I'm going to conduct a roll call and ask that each ARB member participating in this meeting state your name and location which you are participating from. I ask that each of you pay close attention to ensure that you can hear your colleagues. Following this roll call, we will vote to establish that every member can hear every other member. All right, Ms. Aubrey.
Yes, this is Michelle Aubry, and I am at my residence in the Mount Vernon district. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Burns. Mr. Burns, at this moment, we cannot hear you. You may be muted.
Okay, so sorry about that. I was having trouble getting my mouse to the right spot to unmute. Yes, I can hear just fine so far, and I'm at my residence in Holland Hills.
All right, thank you, sir. This is Chris Daniel, chairman of the ARB. I'm president of my home in Reston. Ms. Wan.
Yes, this is Samantha Huang. I am here at the Reston, my home. I can hear everyone well so far.
All right, Mr. Kolinsky.
Yes, this is Steve Kolinsky. I'm in my office in Alexandria, Virginia, and I can hear fine. Thank you.
All right, Mr. McReynolds.
This is Mike McReynolds. I can hear fine, and I am at my home in Oakton, Virginia.
All right, thank you, sir. Ms. Murray.
This is Elise Murray. I'm at my residence in Vienna, Virginia.
All right, at this time, I do not see Ms. Notkins listed in the attendees. So at this moment, we'll mark her as absent. If she does arrive, we will add her after the fact. Ms. Orr had indicated she will not be able to attend, so she'll be marked as not present. And Mr. Plumpy.
Yeah, this is Joe Plumpy, Fairfax Station, Virginia, hearing you loud and clear. Just floated back into my house. It was heavy rain. Oh, thank you.
Good to have you here, sir. And Mr. Zellman.
This is Jason Zellman. I'm at my house in Burke, Virginia. I can hear everyone just fine.
All right. At this point, I will pass the virtual gavel to the vice chairman so that I may be heard to make the requisite motion. Mr. Zellman, the gavel is yours. I move that each member's voice is adequately heard by each other member of this ARB.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
A second.
All right, Ms. Huang with a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries.
All right, thank you, sir. As determined by the roll call, 9 members of this ARB are present and therefore satisfy an ARB quorum minimum. The ARB bylaws state that a minimum of 6 members are required to determine a quorum. It is so moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, second from Mr. Burns. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? And abstentions? And the motion carries.
Third, having established that each member's voice may be heard by every other member, we must next establish the nature of the emergency that compels these emergency procedures. The fact that we are meeting electronically, what type of electronic communication is being used, and how we have arranged for public access to this meeting. Therefore, I move that the state of emergency caused by COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for this ARB to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend any such meeting. And that as such, FOIA's usual procedures, which require physical assembly of the ARB and the physical presence of the public, cannot be implemented safely or practically. I further move that the ARB may conduct this meeting electronically through WebEx, a county virtual meeting platform, and available for access through the ARB county website, or through phone at 1-844-621-3956 with the access code 173-512-6008. It is so moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second from Mr. Burns. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? And the motion carries.
Next, it is required for all matters addressed on today's agenda are statutorily required or necessary to continue operations and the discharge of this board's lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities. It is so moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, Mr. Kalinsky with the second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say nay. Abstentions? And the motion carries.
Finally, the ARB needs to determine how long each member of the public will be able to speak during public comment periods. The public will be allowed to comment after consent agenda items, and after each action item, it is standard ARB practice. I move that each member of the public will have 3 minutes to speak.
Is there a second?
I second.
All right, Ms. Wong with the second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? And abstentions? And the motion carries.
All right. 6
gavel.
minutes, I think that's handing the gavel back. 6 minutes, that's about as fast as we can get it down to, I think. All right, now that we are able to bring this meeting to order, virtual meeting and WebEx information. Laura, do you have any updates for any of those in attendance?
Just that this meeting is being recorded, and if you're in the attendee list when your item is called, we will upgrade you to panelists, and you'll be able to share your screen and speak as well. So stay tuned for that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Laura. And as is tradition with any ARB meeting, we begin the meeting with a reading of the statement of purpose and intent of historic overlay districts. And our Vice Chairman, Mr. Zellman, has graciously offered to do so.
Historic overlay districts are created for the purpose of promoting the general welfare, education, economic prosperity, and recreational pleasure of the public through the perpetuation of those general areas or individual structures and premises that have been officially designated by the Board of Supervisors as having historical, cultural, architectural, or archaeological significance. Regulations within such districts are intended to protect against destruction of or encroachment upon such areas, structures, and premises, to encourage usage which will lead to their continuance, conservation, and improvement in a manner appropriate to the preservation of the cultural, social, economic, political, architectural, or archaeological heritage of the county, to prevent creation of environmental influences adverse to such purposes, and to assure that new structures and uses within such districts will be in keeping with the character to be preserved and enhanced.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zellman. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. I would look for a motion from any member.
Move to approve the agenda.
All right, we have a motion to approve the agenda from Mr. McReynolds. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
I believe that was Mr. Kalinsky. Yes, seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. All right. Introductions and recognitions of guests. Laura?
I think all the guests that we have tonight are here for one of the action or workshop items. So if we could just ask at the end of the action item to make sure there's no one here to speak, that would be good too.
All right, will do. There are no consent calendar action items. So we will move on to items for action. I will remind applicants for both these and workshop items to please try to limit your presentation to a reasonable time frame. If you've come here before, try to provide summaries so that we can respect everyone's time. With that being said, the first item for action is ARB 20BRB-01, proposal to provide dog kennels as an additional use and a new septic field. This is presented by Mr. Mark Crane of Harold and Logan Associates, who represents the proposal. Mr. Crane, I think I've seen you just appear on my screen. Hopefully you can hear us.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so several months ago, I believe it was November or December, I met with you all to go over the project, which as you said, was to provide the dog kennels. It was a change in use to use the kennels that are already existing on site for dog kennels. And over the course of the work on the project, it was determined that the septic field was failing, and the Humane Society needed a new septic field, installed. And given that the site is close to the stone bridge, the panel decided that it would be a good idea if there was additional archaeological study undertaken to see if there was any artifacts or anything out there worth further study. And through much work with the state and with the Park Authority, we got a letter from John Rutherford here recently, an email that indicated that the area had been studied quite extensively, and that no additional, in his opinion, no additional work was needed. And I provided Laura with copies of the emails, and so we scheduled the meeting, and hopefully we can move forward with this project. So, I mean, it's pretty simple on our end, I believe, and I can answer any questions anybody may have.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. I will go around the room for questions, starting with Miss Albury.
Thank you. I do appreciate the in the materials that were submitted before the meeting, that we got a copy of the email from Mr. Rutherford saying that the area was cleared archaeologically. So thank you very much for including that. And I have, since he is saying that no additional work is necessary, I have no additional questions. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Thank you, Michelle. Mr. Burns.
I have no additional questions or comments.
All right. Ms. Swan.
I have no comments.
All right. Mr. Kolinsky.
Yeah, has there been any feedback from the public on this? Just curious. I didn't hear you open it or offer it to anybody.
That's a good point. I did not open it up at this point. So I guess that would be a good question. Are there any members of the public that have any comments on this application or have any statements on this application?
Is that a question for me?
No, that is a
Okay.
question in general that I should have asked right after your presentation before we started asking you questions. The faux pas by me. Laura, do you see anyone in the chat?
I don't see anyone, but I'll just ask, you can, in the chat, if I don't call on you or if you have a question, you can always type in the chat box, which is on the bottom right side of your screen.
We're supposed to always ask after every application. So.
Yeah, sorry, didn't mean to call you out, Chris. I just
no, I'm glad
really
you
wanted
did.
to know if there's, but barring it, anybody else from the public having an opinion or a comment on this, I'm fine with what I see.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Seeing anything, Laura? All right, Mr. McReynolds. Mr. McReynolds, do you have any comments or questions?
I don't have any questions or comments.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ms. Murray?
Nothing from me.
All right, Mr. Plumpy?
Nothing from me as well. Thank you.
And Mr. Zellman?
No questions or comments. Thank you.
All right, and not to be a broken record, but I equally don't have any questions or comments. Seeing that we're not hearing any comments from any members of the public, I would entertain a motion from one of my members. Please remember you've had them submitted to you as part of the materials for this meeting.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Zellman.
I would move that the ARB approve action item ARB-20-BRB-01 located at 16001 Lee Highway in Centerville, tax map 063-2, (1) 8, in the Bull Run Bridge Historic Overlay District is submitted and presented at the June 10, 2021 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet requirements of zoning ordinance 7-200 historic overlay districts.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Kalinsky. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Crane. Laura will get back to you following this meeting with information on the approval.
Okay, you guys have a great evening. Thank you.
You as well. All right. That dispenses with our action items. And we now move on to our items for workshop session. The first of these items is ARB 21 LOR 01, proposal for the renovation of building W35 adjacent to the Workhouse Arts Center. And this one is being presented by Ms. Jacqueline Miller of Laven Homes. And Ms. Miller, I see your name on the screen. Make sure you unmute so we can see if we can hear you.
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. And let Laura know if you need her to present or if you would like presenting abilities.
I can present.
And Jacqueline, do you need me to upgrade anyone else from panelist to a panelist?
No, I think we're okay. I mean, Valerie's on it. Yep. I think we're okay.
Thanks.
And I don't have a share button available. Great, thank you.
All right, Jacqueline, the floor is yours.
All right, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you for having me again. We came to the May ARB work session last month to present this, and we got some great feedback regarding mainly our front entry elevation. And so again, this is the Archaeology and Museum Collection Storage Facility for the Fairfax County Park Authority. And I will go through this quickly since we reviewed it last month, but this project is a renovation to building W35, which is directly next to the Workhouse Arts Center. We are outside the Lorton Prison, the Historic District Overlay, but we are part of the 2001 Memorandum Agreement, hence why we're presenting to the ARB. And so this is the existing conditions map. This is building W35 next to the Workhouse Arts Center here. And these are just some photos showing what the existing conditions is. This is a building that is currently not occupied, and it was an old boiler plant that was used for storage, and it hasn't been used since the, I think, early 2000s. And the other item to note is this county trail that is coming through here. So what you will see on this next image, which is our current site plan, is we are connecting and bringing a drive through to this building. And then we are maintaining access to this county road here. We will have a small parking lot here and a small building addition here that will be mainly loading dock and associated functions for the facility. And an update to this sheet. Last time we had talked specifically about this fence that we are adding, which currently they're on site. There is a fence. It's a 8 foot tall chain link fence. And so one item we are proposing is possibly with our fence, which we will be adding to connect back to that, was making it a black vinyl fence. And we would love to hear your thoughts on that. We discussed last time the dumpster enclosure, and we did receive the details for the ARB approval from the other WAF buildings. And so we will make sure ours matches the approved enclosure that you guys have reviewed in the past. And that location is currently here on the plan. And continuing on, we have a preliminary landscape plan here. We are working with urban forestry on the tree layouts, and this is going to be reviewed. It's currently with our DPE reviewer right now, kind of doing an analysis of it, but this is just the preliminary. One item I will say that we will address with urban forestry is the zoning requirements for the trees. Our property is on overlaps to zoning requirements, and we took the more stringent one as far as tree layouts go, and we might reach out to them to see if we could do the less stringent, because it seems to be a little bit more applicable. The less stringent is the workhouse art zoning, which is really more where this building is connecting to, than the landfill side, which is the more stringent zoning as far as trees go. So this plan might be updated, and in the end, it would mean a reduction in trees if that is accepted by them. And I guess let me zoom in. In general, we kind of kept the trees like an entry going into it. This is the loading dock elevation, and so you'll come down here and kind of zero in on that. And the entry to the building is over here, a little bit off to the side. And so we have just clusters of trees going around. And then some minor landscaping here in front of the building. And these are the existing, the plans. This is the existing building that is outlined here in black dots. And again, this is our one-story addition to the building. And we are renovating the existing building and adding a second level on this side. And so this is the second level. And again, this is mainly, as you can see, this is mainly a building for collection storage, and then the associated support and offices that will accompany that, as well as any other support for the building that is needed. So these are our updated elevations. As you might remember last time, we originally approached this building as referenced to complement the Workhouse Arts Center. And the feedback that we got was it might have been a little bit too complimentary, and maybe to review and look at the existing building here and be contextual to that. So we have come back and redid these elevations. Again, one other comment that we got was that we wanted the entry was not highly emphasized. And so we've gone back to kind of the original idea, which was this light box coming through this entry piece. And so we provided a large storefront here, and it continues to this other side, and it creates this two-story volume beyond it. And then this is the loading dock elevation. So this is the new elevation. And again, like I was mentioning earlier, this is where the entry drive, it centers on that loading dock elevation. So one idea we had, since this part of the building does not necessarily need windows or light to it, but we still wanted to provide some sort of visual emphasis on it, was to create some sort of metal panel emphasis right here in the center. And the idea was we're still playing with exactly what that will look like, and we'll provide an update when we come back for approval. But the idea was to relate it back to the entry and kind of the sizes and proportions of the panels, and kind of create this rhythm going around. And this is just an example of a possibility which is showing a metal aluminum storefront system, but with kind of pressed panels within it. And that also has windows, but that's one of the ideas. And also, actually, this is something that we were curious about from a approval process was that if the Fairfax County Park Authority decides to do any sort of public art at those metal panels or changing them in some sense, would that require ARB approval in the future? That was kind of just an idea we were talking about internally. We'd like to get your thoughts on as well. And so this is I should have said this first, but this is the west elevation, which is that front entry piece into the project. And this is the back elevation, which will have that same mirrored storefront element. And then going around, we mainly just have punched window elements. This is the south elevation, which will house the mechanical room and the collection storage. So windows were not needed. This is the loading dock on this side. And then we just created punched window openings and functions and spaces that required them. Not all rooms desired windows, so it's the people to just got step up. But so yes, that I'll just leave it at that for now, and I can open up to questions.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Miller. We don't have to ask the public for comments this time, so I can go right into our member questions. Just to make sure I have a clarification here. So the materials that, just for everyone's sake, the materials that were submitted, we only had the 8 pages, but what you showed us was also some landscaping.
Correct.
Is that something that you intend to also come back in the full package to have all those materials? Okay.
Yes.
I want to make sure that's clear, just because I know some members may have questions about those items, just because we haven't seen them in the packet.
Sure.
Going around, Ms. Albury.
I'd like to thank the presenter for the presentation and the update, and I have no questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Mr. Burns.
Yes, I think the revised design is very responsive to the comments that we made last month. Thank you to Glovin Holmes for making these changes. I like the fact that it is clearly a more contemporary design, and obviously it's a more recent building than the workhouse. And even though it's the same, essentially the same color brick, that no one will confuse it with part of the original workhouse. And that was my aim in my comments last month, and I think you've achieved that quite well. My congratulations. No further comments.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Burns. Ms. Swan.
Yes, I like this improvement as well, and thank you for your presentation. I have no comments.
All right, Mr. Kalinsky.
Okay, well, I want to thank the applicant. I say it was a very good response to our comments. I think opening up the entryway into the, say, light well, as you described, is a good way to handle that very difficult, I'm going to say, conundrum of the entrance being buried versus having it be prominent. And even though you're coming down the road and coming straight at the loading dock area, excuse me, the concrete walkway along with the landscaping will draw your eye over there. So I think that's well done. I really do like the metal screen panel system, and the fortunate thing there, as a element, it works well. What the actual screen panels aren't as critical, but I think you chose a nicely detailed panel that's in there, and I trust that you guys will ultimately end up with something as attractive. So I think very well done. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Kalinsky. Mr. McReynolds.
Yeah, I think the building looks beautiful. I think it'll be a great addition to the facilities out there, and I applaud your design and your workmanship here. I think it'll be a great enhancement to what's going on out there.
All right. Thank you, sir. Ms. Murray.
I am content with the proposal as it stands.
All right, Mr. Plumpy.
I think building wise, it's great. Personally, I've seen the landscaping. There are some issues I have with the landscaping, how the trees are, every other tree is a different variety, especially on the side of the building. Those are shade trees. Make certain you have enough room for shade trees up against the building facade. I question the placement of shade trees that close to the building itself. So the alley of trees going down the driveway makes sense. Again, different varieties. I know monocultures are not good, so I think you did a fair job there. But I'm anxious to review the landscape again when it's submitted fully with a plant list and sizes of the trees. And the shrubberies too as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Plumpy. Mr. Zellman.
I echo my colleagues' comments about the responsiveness to our comments from the last meeting. I appreciate that. I think the design looks great, and I don't have any further comments beyond that at this time.
All right, thank you, sir. I agree with my fellow members that I think the revisions you all have made do soften the compatibility concern we had with the building feeling like it was too connected to the historic properties. I actually really like the metal screening that you're proposing. I wanted to fall back to a question about the public art item you brought up. Could you clarify that question again? Because I wasn't quite sure I followed what you were asking.
Sure. Thank you for going back to that. So when we first presented this to Fairfax County Park Authority, we just were talking in the meeting about how this could potentially be a great location for public art, and just kind of thinking through the idea of making it like maybe it could be interchangeable, or could be a competition for someone to create some sort of metal panel. Like, just kind of brought up an idea, and one, we don't know if we're going to go that route or propose to go that route, but we were kind of curious as far as review from the ARB what that would entail.
So I'm going to add a little bit of comment to Jacqueline, just being part of the end user was the Park Authority. So some of the ideas that we potentially had is if the metal panels were conducive to do like temporary art exhibits there, if that would be something that we needed ARB approval. Like for now, we are intending to have a metal panel. It's just looking into the future if we have the ability to staff and coordinate having art displayed there. I think it would be something really nice to have. But I was just wondering if that is something that the ARB would need to approve, especially if it's on a temporary basis.
Thank you, Valerie. And could you clarify your title just for the record for the meeting?
I'm a project manager with Fairfax County Park Authority.
Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure that's on the recording there. Laura, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think if there was something that was a temporary art display, that's something that the ARB would typically have oversight on. Obviously, some permanent architectural feature would fall within our purview, but if you were doing a rotating thing, it's usually not something that falls within our auspices.
Yeah, if you go out to the site today, you can see all the rotating art that's out there now. So I think this is just kind of another platform, you know, for the art and for display of the art. As long as it's temporary, we wouldn't have it. But if you had that kind of second design competition, you know, like a design competition for a permanent, you know, thing on the building, we probably want to take a look at that.
I believe the screen was something that was designed by an artist or something to that effect, something that was going to be for the building long term, then the ARB would want to see that. But we've been on record very supportive of the Workhouse Arts Center displaying as much public art as they can. I don't think I'm out of line with saying that because I've heard many members say that.
So my next follow-up question with that would be, it's what's considered temporary versus long-term?
I would say my thought is that it's two things: it's size and longevity, right? So if you have it out there for 5 years and then 5 years later you come in and change it out with, you know, a new artist, that would be temporary.
Okay.
And then also size-wise too, you know, if you kind of, you know, if it becomes more of an architectural feature than kind of just I'm thinking of it as an easel or something, you know, something just to like kind of display art. That's a whole different story. But I think there's been some art. The signs out there at the workhouse now, I think, have all different spans of how long they've been out there. So I don't think we have a quick limit on something. But I would say, you know, temporary would be, you know, 1 or 2 years up to 5 years, you know, something with the idea that it would change at some point.
I open it up to any ARB members that might have any observations they want to add on this topic, just for the applicant's insight. I'm not going to go back around, but if someone has anything else they want to add.
I think John Burns wants to say something.
Yeah,
John, please. Sorry, I can't see you. I can only see some folks on the screen.
Yeah, I was raising my hand, but okay. Yes, I like the idea of art. I have no objection to having art on public buildings in the county, but that caused me to think of two things. One is, if you have art on the building, that is kind of like an invitation for people to visit the building. And I wonder to what extent you have plans for visitation in what I think is a maintenance and storage facility, not like a museum setting. So that's just, there's an implication there that if you invite people to the site by putting art for them to see, they might expect a little bit more than that. So that was just an observation. The second observation came as a result of that. I don't recall in the presentation anything about signage. You know, will there be a sign at the entrance drive? Will there be a sign on the building? Will it be illuminated? Things of that sort.
So, actually, that's something we need to discuss internally, but I believe we want to have as little signage as we can because for security reasons, we don't really want to tell the public what that building is for, just due to what's in there. So,
if that's the case, then having art there is kind of to that goal.
Yeah.
So that's just an observation.
And that's where we still have not decided what we want. And in the future, there is plans 10, 15 years down the line to actually add an addition to the building and create a museum portion of it. So maybe the idea of having art might come when that addition is in place. But we were just curious as to the ARB stand on it.
I think in general, unless there's any other members that have comment, I think John gave some great insight there. The signage thing is an important thing to think about. Obviously, when you all do come back for full submittal, obviously Laura can give you all a lot of assistance on any things we would be looking for materials wise. I will agree. I think it's a question of structure when it comes to whether or not ARB review gets involved. So obviously things like temporary tents and things start to become an issue with the ARB when they become more structures and things like that. We want to have some oversight on. The same would be here, that if we're creating a structural feature to the building that's more permanent, then we're definitely going to want to have oversight. If we're not, then I think it's definitely more something of a question of utility and use here, and how long is it going to stay, and replacement, but perhaps considering coming back if it's ostentatious or something. But I get the impression that's not direction you guys are going in. Otherwise, it sounds like the indication is we should expect to see you coming back in one of the next meetings for application.
Yes.
All right. I think you already have a set of plans that seems fairly well put together with a lot of callouts and information that we would already be looking for. I know the one other question that I think Jacqueline brought up that I don't think we talked about was the fencing. I personally don't have an issue if you're switching to the black fencing. I think it's a little bit more preferable over just the plain metal chain link, but that's just my personal preference. The idea is obviously to not draw as much attention as possible, and I don't think either one of those draws too much attention.
And the slight change in material would differentiate it from the historic chain link fencing of the former prison.
That's true.
It's subtle but distinctive.
All right. Well, I think that's all we have for you, unless either of you ladies have any additional questions you might want to ask while you're here. Otherwise, it seems like everyone's quite happy, and we'll look forward to seeing this. I would take in mind the comments you got from Mr. Plumpido about the landscape plan. He did have quite a few items that he wants to make sure you guys keep in mind.
Yes, okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you all.
Okay, thank you. All right, onward and upward. So now we move to item number 3 on our agenda in the workshop sessions. This is ARB 19 LOR 07 Amendment Proposal for Restroom Facility at Laurel Hill Central Green Park. Right.
Kelly Davis, this is Laura. Can you let me know who I need to promote for this item?
Yeah, I see Mr.
and
Don
Don
Gray,
Gray.
the project engineer for Schaefer Wilson. And
And Zena.
Okay, great, thank you.
So my name is Kelly Davis, and I'm a project manager for the Park Authority, Fairfax County Park Authority. We came to you back in December, talking about the bathroom building at the Central Green at Laurel Hill. I have a brief presentation for you all, and then I'm going to hand it over to SWSG to discuss the project again. But essentially, after we came to the meeting to you in December and we addressed all your looked at all your comments, and I decided or figured that since you all were pretty close to accepting the building, I would send it out per the MOA to BDHR and Lorton Heritage Society and South County Federation. BDHR approved the concept that we had presented. Lorton Heritage Society and South County Federation took exception to the exterior materials of the building. So we had to go back and try to, they wanted brick. They were very adamant about having a brick exterior. They didn't like the exterior materials that we had used, proposed. So Laura was very gracious and organized the meeting with Steve Kalinsky, who helped, help, I guess, mitigate or delegate, or not delegate, but help to work us through the project with the South County Federation, the Lorton Heritage Society, and Park Authority. And I think we came to an agreement. In the end, we decided to change the exterior to brick. And so that's what we're presenting tonight. I do have 3 slides if you want to go through them again. It's just essentially the ones you saw in December that just gives you an overview of the site, or if you want to just go straight into the building, we could do that too.
Let's quickly walk through the whole thing, just because it has been a little while since we've seen you all last, and just just hit the high points.
Let's see if I can share my screen. I've got a wonky non-county computer going through counting.
Kelly, this is Laura. I can share it if you'd like, and you can just give an overview.
Okay, yeah, if you could do the ARB Laurel Hill Restroom Building 3 slide real quick, I could do that.
All right, you can see your screen there, Laura. But we are seeing it in note mode.
I was gonna say, do you see my notes, or do you see my
We see your notes as well.
Technically, they're not my notes, but try again. Sorry, everyone, I'm rusty. Okay, this one. Nope, it's not going. Okay, I'll just make it really big.
Okay.
All right, go ahead. I'll just kind of scroll down. I'm trying to figure out.
So as you can see by the red, oops.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. So the red oval in the middle of the page is the Central Green area. You all were just looking at the workhouse area, which is to the south. To the north is the Liberty reuse area, Liberty at Laurel Crest. So Central Green area is the area we're talking about right now. You can go to the next slide. It'll be good. So this slide is is the central green area, the site plan for the central green area, which has the loop road and the new picnic shelters. The proposed building is going to be in the red square there in the middle of the lawn area. So just looking at photo number 1, that's a photo of the new shelters that we just had installed this winter. Photo number 2 is looking towards where the new restroom building is proposed to be. Photo number 3 is a view of the central green and from one angle, and then photo number 4 is another view of the central green lawn area from another angle from the parking lot. If you could go to the next slide. So this is just a view of surrounding landscape from the central green and the restroom building. Photo 1 on the top just shows a view from the picnic shelters towards the Liberty site, which you can't really see too much of the Liberty site. Photo number 2 is towards the turkey barn. If you look really hard, you can see the silo from the turkey barn there. Photo number 3 is from the restroom location towards the workhouse area. That little stone tower you see there is a contributing element in the National Register district as well. It's a stone pillar. And then photo number 5 is looking across Lorton Road towards the equestrian center, and that's a silo that you see, the rectangular thing that's kind of sticking up into the sky there. So that is just the brief area of the description of the area, and I'll let Zena and Don Gray go into the building, unless you all have questions.
I would say let's keep moving and then we'll go through questions all the way at the end of the presentation. So let's move on to the building.
Do I need to give it, Kelly, do I need to give it to Dawn or Zena?
Yeah, Dawn and Zena.
I'll be talking. I'll explain the design. I have the drawings open, but my share button is yeah, it's working now.
Then there you go. I have to give it to you. There you go. It should work.
Okay, let me try. Can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So as you may all remember that our design was a little different back in December or January. We had metal panels all around the building and but the same design basically. So after talking to the VDHR and talking more about the project, we were instructed to match the style of the buildings around in the area, the historical character. So we are using now brick as our main material all around, and also split face as a band at the bottom that wraps all around the building. This is very similar to other buildings surrounding this area. So we kept the same design that we had before. So this is the main entrance as you're coming from the parking lot. This is what you see. And then to the right would be a restroom, and then to the left would be another one. This is the side that Kelly was showing a few minutes ago. This is our building, and these are the picnic shelters, the existing picnic shelters that are there. In our previous design, we kind of tried to use some of the colors that were in the picnic shelters, but during our talk with you and everyone else, the thought was the picnic shelters are not so significant, so we do not want to keep emphasizing the colors that they have. So we're using the colors for the historical buildings around in the area. This is the restroom facility. On this side, they're all accessible restrooms. On this side, we have the women's with all the stalls, and the men's are here. And then we have 3 family restrooms, all accessible. And then the utility room with big chase in the middle to serve all the plumbing. And in the back here, we have a bench area for waiting, or just for basically for people who are using the restroom. They can just wait outside here. We have bike rack, which was one of the comments that you provided us previously. And also the water fountain, it's with bottle filler. That is actually a standard with Fairfax County Park Authority that we've been using. So this is what we're showing now. These are the materials that we're using. The roof is a standing seam with grayish color, like charcoal color. All the metal columns, the metal material and aluminum storefront are all black color, which matches the buildings around, the historical buildings around. And then the brick also, we picked the closest match to most of the buildings nearby. For this. And then the split face is grayish color that goes with one of the shades in the brick here. And then we have this clear story to provide brightness to all the toilets. And one of the ARB comments previously was, how do we deal with drainage of the roof? So I'm using concealed gutter system inside the standing seam. It's showing a little bit here. And then there are downspouts that go near the wall. I'm going to show. Yeah, so this is the roof plan. And this is the gutter system with downspouts that go down the sides of the CMU wall. So I use these wing walls underneath to kind of cover those downspouts. This is a detail for what I'm using. So this is the main elevation for the entrance, the entry elevation. This is an elevation from the back where we have the benches. One of the ARB comments was to use more modern benches than what I was showing. So I'm showing just metal benches. They can be either white or black to match the posts. And this is the other side where we have the family rooms and the utility room. And this is a section through the entire area where it shows the clear story here, and then another clear story on the other side, the low side. That's it. I don't know if Don wants has any other comments to add, or Kelly.
Yeah, one of the things I did want to mention is I went ahead and sent this to VDHR and Lorton Heritage Society to get their comments, and I got approval from both of them on the changes.
All right. If there's no other information you all want to share, I think we'll turn it over to the members for questions. All right, Miss Aubrey.
It looks like a very impressive restroom facility. And I have no questions or comments for the presenters. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Miss Aubrey. Mr. Burns.
Yeah, my only comment is similar to for the archaeology storage and maintenance facility, is that you're using materials that are consistent with the historic character of the property, but you're using massing and building forms that are clearly differentiated and modern, and I think it will work just fine. So no further comments or questions.
Great.
All right, thank you, sir. Moving onward, Ms. Wan.
I do have one question asked. So, what is the structure holding up the roof? And if that slope the beam is sure, I think the roof thickness may become thicker. It might change the proportion a little bit, or may not. It can expose as well, but it might change the look a little bit. However, it's not, to me, it's not a big concern. It's just something that detail have to continue to work it out. That is all. I think I like the brick. I think is the appearance is much better than metal. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Ms. Wan. Mr. Kalinsky.
Okay, thank you. Obviously, the feedback from the various participants has produced a different building, and I think one that is attractive and a lot more durable than what was previously proposed. So I'm happy with it. I do have one small concern, and this is more of a maintenance issue, is your two downspouts that come along the outside wing walls along the corners of the building. Everything from the wainscoting, 3-foot level down is pretty vulnerable. I think you're going to have people turn the corner there and may get kicked or crushed. So if there was some thought into what sort of material would be, some sort of cast iron boot or some sort of protective sleeve around that, I think will go a long way in having your gutter system work effectively for a much longer time. It's an interesting concept for the gutter system, and it makes it all invisible. I like that, but we'd like it to be able to function and not just fail early on. So please
Sure.
consider something there to protect those gutters,
Sure.
and hopefully something attractive.
Sure.
So everything else that I'm going to say, I have no objection to. I like it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. McReynolds.
Yeah, I think that the bathroom looks beautiful, and I think it's going to be a great enhancement. I mean, I think eliminating the fountain near the restrooms and stuff like that were a big improvement. It's still a little bit strange having the picnic tables there on one side, but I still think it's going to be a great addition to the facility. And I mean, I think this is going to be a great addition to the area. So I'm all in favor of it.
All right, thank you, sir. Ms. Murray.
Well, it's not as much fun now. And I wish we could get the community to break their brick obsession, but I don't think they ever will. It's fine. It will be a very attractive restroom facility.
All right, thank you, ma'am. That brings us to Mr. Plumpy.
Yeah, Mr. Kalinsky, thank you so much for sitting down with the Park Service, doing an excellent job. Of course, there's nothing bad about the building, but it looks really good. I'm being sarcastic, but it is very good. And I think brick is the right choice. Very good selections of everything. No comments. So welcome the new structure when it's built.
All right, Mr. Zellman.
I have no further comments. Thank you.
All right, I agree with my fellow board members. I agree with Ms. Murray that it's no longer as fun, but that's okay. It's still a very well put together design. I think definitely the comments from our architectural folks definitely worth considering regarding drainage and gutters and whatnot. We definitely don't want a building that ends up becoming a bit of a problem to be around with that problem that they're suggesting there. I'll agree the benches near the side are a little, I don't know, it just doesn't seem like it's going to be a place where people are going to congregate for having their snacks, but I'm not a recreation scientist, so I don't know the answers there on that one.
So the main usage for these benches, like from parent point of view, so if like the other parent takes the kids inside the restrooms, they can wait. Yeah, the rest of the people can wait under, if it's raining or anything, they can just wait, put their stuff at the table and wait until they finish.
And that's why I'm not a recreation scientist. So I don't know all those parts, though. I do have a small child, so that does make some sense there.
Say, Mr. Daniel, as a father of 3, that is really welcome.
Okay.
Exactly.
See, I'm only a father of 1, so I don't, don't have to go in to handle that one situation. That being said, I do think it looks great. I think there's been a lot of effort put in here and assistance provided by the fellow board members on it. It sounds like you're going to be coming back to us for a formal submission in the future, and it seems like the package as provided seems to be really in line with what we've been looking for. So think we'll look forward to seeing you all soon.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. With that one completed, we move on to our final work session item, which is ARB 19 LOR 07, Amendment number 2, proposal for internal road and parking for Laurel Hill Central Green near the Barrett House. Looking for our presenters on this one. Are they some of the same folks we've had from last time, Laura?
I am one
No.
of them.
Kelly's one of them, but we have some others as well.
All right. Well, Kelly, I think the floor is yours again, along with your other presenters.
You guys are lucky you get a twofer tonight. Laura, can you throw up the ENF presentation?
Sure, just give me 1 minute. All right, can you see that? Can you guys see the presentation?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great.
So moving on to the west of the Central Green, the Park Authority is looking to develop the area next to the Barrett House and a little bit beyond that. So tonight I have Stephanie Langton here to talk about resident curator issues. If you have any questions about that with the Barrett House. I have Matt Tauscher and Ben Hartman here from Bowman Consulting who can speak to any site plan related questions you may have. But first, I'm just going to present these 5 slides and then we can go through questions and what your thoughts are on this project. So the Barrett House is a little bit east of the Central Green. As you can see in that the rectangular area there, that's the portion of the project that I'm focusing on tonight. The rest of the project actually the Historic Overlay District boundary is the gray line that goes all the way around. You can see the light gray line that goes around. So beyond the gray line is also part of the project. That's where we are looking to put in some 2 rectangular fields, athletic fields. That is, of the 1,200 acres that we received from Laurel Hill, this is the only flat area that we can look to put in some fields. So this is where we are proposing to put in some 2 rectangular fields. If you can go to the next slide, please. So this is the site plan or the 50% concept sheets. I didn't want to get too far down the road until I got input from you. Back in 2015, when we brought the whole project to you all, the recreation area, the bathroom building, and the Central Green, some of the comments we received were to keep the parking above to the north of the Barrett House and keep the majority of the parking on the other side of the historic overlay boundary. So taking those comments into account from many years ago when we came to you for the original concept, we are looking now we moved the, so you can see the Barrett House is there in the red square. So that's the Barrett House. All those lines behind the Barrett House, there is the new septic that has been installed for the resident curator program. Water has been installed and electricity has been installed to the Barrett House. So if you look at the bottom of the sheet, at the intersection there where it says Central Green Entrance Road, that is the road that goes across the 1-lane barrel bridge over to the Central Green. We are proposing to add an internal park road that goes right off of the entrance road and sort of follows the old alignment of the old Lorton Road and then cuts across the historic overlay boundary over to where the rectangular fields are. We've also improved the circular driveway area at the Barrett house. This is, and also added a little parking area, so the resident curator will have their own parking area. They won't have to worry about visitors coming and taking their parking lot. They'll have their private parking area. To the north is the proposed parking, which is going to act more for overflow parking for the Central Green area, or if there's a lot going on over to Central Green, people can park here and access the CCT trail up to the north. You can see at the top of the sheet to the right where it says existing trail to CCT, you can access the cross county trail there. It's also going to be overflow parking for the fields as well. So essentially that is the proposal for the site plan. If you could go to the next slide, I'll show you some photos of the site. So if you look at the key map there, it's kind of small, but if you see the dark black line that goes around the Barrett house, that is the property dedicated to the resident curator program. So that's the piece of land that they're looking for. So we made sure not to get into that property at all, not to put anything in that area. View A, the picture of the house, that is where the proposed road, that's from the proposed road that we are looking to put in, the internal park road. View B is the view towards Lorton Road from the entrance loop that we have there now, just looking the road, existing road, looking towards Lorton Road, the entrance to the park. View C is looking the other way towards the golf course, where also the area where the proposed overflow parking would be. View D is looking at the Barrett house from where the beginning of the internal park road would connect to the road to the Central Green. And view E is just a road from the entrance from Lorton Road towards the house itself. Then if you could go to the next slide. So here's a couple sections for you to look at. Section AA is a view section from the proposed internal road starting near the intersection with the road that goes to the Central Green and goes over by in front of the house and ends up over across the historic overlay district line. You can see the writing, the vertical light writing there is where the historic overlay boundary ends. And then view B is a section through the house, which also shows the meadow area that's going to be saved, the entrance road, the road that leads to the parking, sidewalk, the section through the house, the big tree that's behind the house, the lawn area, and then once you get past the historic overlay, you get into the parking area for the ball fields. And next slide, please. So this is just isometric perspective to give you kind of an idea of what it's going to look like. View A again is looking from the intersection of the entrance road connection to the Central Green. So you got a view of the existing road that goes up towards the golf course. You can kind of see the parking that is proposed there, the new reconfigured loop road for the resident curator, and then an idea of what the new proposed road is going to look like. And view B is another angle of what the internal proposed road is going to look like towards the ball fields and sort of the parking area up towards the north of the house. And the next slide, I'll leave the next slide up. It's just if you all have any questions, this is just a site plan that you can refer to, but that is essentially the presentation.
All right, thank you very much, Kelly. If nothing more, I'll go to the members for their questions. Ms. Aubrey.
Yes, thank you. I looked back in the minutes, actually way back to 2015, and I saw that the ARB initially approved all of the development in this area with several conditions, and one of them was to conduct a phase 1 archaeological survey. So I would like if Kelly could tell us what the status is. I'm assuming it's been done and that there's no issues, but I just want to hear that from her. What is the status?
Actually, you know, I'm not sure we've done a phase one behind the Barrett house yet. I would assume, you know, I'll check with Amy Wells. Obviously, we have to do phase ones on all of our development. So I will check with Amy. I know there was an initial one that was very broad. We did a lot of it over at the Central Green, but to tell you the truth, around the Barrett house, I haven't done one yet, but I have to do one before I can move forward, and cultural resources will let me do anything. So there will be one done if it's not done. But I'll check on that.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm glad I brought it up.
Although I'm afraid of John Rutherford, so yeah, I would definitely.
Rutherford?
Nah.
All right, thank you, Michelle. Mr. Burns.
Yeah, I would echo what Ms. Aubrey had said. I was wondering, did you have to do any archaeology for the new septic fields?
Matt, did you have to do archaeology? Do you remember?
No, we did not.
Okay.
And I don't
Okay.
know, I'm not aware that they encountered anything anyways. It was pretty close to the house.
Okay. Oftentimes that's where you'll find stuff that's close to the house. Anyway, my primary question revolves around the Half Moon Drive that goes from the parking access road and loops up toward the Barrett house. In width, it's almost the same width as the two-direction access road that goes past it, and I'm concerned that that's going to become people are just going to think it's another public road to drive on as opposed to somebody's driveway. And I'm wondering, is there any plan to reduce that or make it less obviously, more obviously an access road to the Barrett house as opposed to another part of the improvements that you're making here? It just strikes me as overly heavy for the proposed use.
Right. That's an excellent question and observation. Laura, are you able to zoom in on that lower right corner of the plan that's in the screen now? So the idea there is what you said. It would be probably a 12-foot wide driveway to resemble a typical single-family residential driveway width. I think what might be showing up there and making it look a little bit larger is we do have a portion of the trail that comes from the four-legged intersection to the south of the house, and that trail wraps around inside the loop of that driveway. In consideration of where we are now and what we're talking about, we'll probably look to pull that trail off of that Barrett house driveway loop so as not to direct people, if you will, directly towards the house and make that more of a private space. I think that is a better intent, and Kelly can confirm, but good observation. We do intend and want that driveway to look as if it's a private driveway, and we'll make that adjustment on our future plans.
Okay, and you volunteered the answer to my second question, which is why does the trail need to loop over that far? Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Burns. Ms. Wan?
I have no comment. Thank you for the presentation.
All right, Mr. Kolinsky.
All right, thank you, Mr. Daniel. Quick, couple questions and some observations. One, it does propose that the Barrett house is going to get, say, a lot more eyes up close on it, which I think is a good thing. The question that goes along with that is there a resident curator that has been picked, or is there any movement on that now that all the improvements have been made to the house?
Stephanie, can you take that one? Let's see.
Hi, good evening there. Stephanie Langton. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. The Barrett House, a curator has not yet been selected. The property has not yet been advertised for applications. We anticipate 2022 at the earliest. We do have a couple other properties that are kind of in the queue before Barrett comes up.
Okay, all right. Curious, in 2022 kind of coincides most likely when all of this would be developed. So good with that. With respect to John Burns' comments about the loop in front of the Barrett house, I kind of noticed the same thing. And even if you're reduced the size of the drive there, I think it would find it beneficial, perhaps with the way that you've now discussed the trail hugging closer to the road rather than going around the loop, that if that was used or delineated somehow, something to show that it just wasn't a regular, the same asphalt or road pattern, something to, identify that this is different or special. So I think that would be advantageous if you were able to combine that trail and that different type of road marking there to prevent people from going up there and attempting to steal those 2 parking spaces or so when things get really crowded, as they do on weekends at parks like this. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Actually, Mr. Chair, before you move on,
sir, Mr. Burns,
and follow up on Mr. Mr. Kalinsky's comments there. I keep zooming in on. I have the PDF up on my large screen here, and I keep zooming in, and there's a kind of a hexagonal thing in the middle of that loop. It says something with cap BCG control, and it has a driveway that goes to it.
That is way back when we first opened up the park. That's an interpretive pod that what's his name? Michael, our old historic resources manager, Mike Ryerson. He designed those they're interpretive pods. They got 3 interpretive signs on them. They had to go to you for the design. They were supposed to look like be the shape of the old guard towers. So there's one here and there's one up by the Liberty at Laurel Crest. So all that is a brick. It's like a brick hexagonal semicircle plaza area with like a 2-foot wall with 3 interpretive signs on it and 2 benches. It's a little seating area and interpretive area because when we first opened Laurel Hill, it was just so vast and nothing was there. Everybody was getting lost.
So is that an existing feature then?
Yes.
We
put that in 2007, I think that was put in.
Okay, so when you reconfigure the driveway and trail, you need to take that into consideration.
Probably need to change the signs too. I'm sure the information's pretty old on that.
Okay. All right, thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
That's all right, Mr. Burns. That's a very good question to bring up there. Mr. Kalinsky is done, I think so. Mr. Reynolds?
I think that I don't have any real comments about it. Yeah, I don't have any comments, honestly.
All right, thank you, sir. Ms. Murray?
Just to chime in on the heaviness of the driveway, that struck me when I looked at the plans. And what is the sidewalk that goes through the semicircle? Does that lead to the feature we were just talking about?
Sidewalk would lead to the feature, yeah. The sidewalk that goes to the feature pretty much crosses the middle of that loop. It goes from the road to the interpretive feature, and then you could walk over to the house if you wanted to, back when we installed that.
Okay, it to me, not realizing the feature was there, it looked aimless. And I really wonder if you want to do something else with it in terms of landscape design.
At this point, we could take it out, probably, and because it's kind of got old information in it, and it's sort of might be sort of out of place at this point, since there's so much other development going on. You don't really get lost there anymore.
That's my reaction. It also strikes me as the marker feature is also kind of impinging on the privacy of the resident curator. Might
True. It does invite people to come in and look at it and sit there, and so yeah, it could be removed.
Well, anyway, I don't feel strongly either way. I just wanted to know what the purpose of the sidewalk was, and since it may not stay, I'm good with that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Murray. Mr. Plumpy.
Yes, thank you. Kelly, hi, thanks for the presentation again. I was going to say I'm with Ms. Murray to remove that or relocate it so it's more legible or get rid of it altogether. Wondering if you had any grading studies yet done or landscape plans done. Anxious to see what that looks like for this area. And are the fields, I assume that the fields to the left are already in, the parking, everything's in, is that correct? Am I incorrect?
No. None of this is in yet. I wanted to make sure the stuff to the right of the historic overlay
Got it.
was okay before we, yeah.
Yeah, because my thought is you know, it looks like there's a lot of topography, at least if they're 2-foot contours, where everything's going. And I just wanted to see how the grading is going to be and if you're providing any storm management on site or whatever. So yeah, you have a lot of room to do something creative, which can be kind of cool, but not overly done. Thank you.
Yeah. I just didn't want to get too far down the road with all the grading and all the technical stormwater stuff until I was sure that this would be acceptable.
Yeah, no problem. But I agree with everybody else's comments regarding sizes of loop and so forth. So thank you so much for presenting.
Sure. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Zellman.
Yeah, I can't add more other than concurring with the previous comments, and thank you for the presentation.
My additions onto my fellow members' comments, I would agree the current, I guess, kiosk location, that definitely is an anomaly that I think we probably should deal with if possible. If it's got dated information on it, then it's not really serving its purpose anymore. And I kind of agree with Ms. Murray that and Mr. Burns that with the sidewalk where it was, plus that, I think we're inviting interaction, whereas I think the change that was being discussed with the applicants makes a lot of good sense, and perhaps we could also deal with that resource as well while we're out there. Otherwise, I don't have any major comments to add on top of anything else any of the other members have provided. Appreciate your prudence and not going too far down the path and doing design before coming to us. We always appreciate applicants that consider that, so we'll look forward to seeing something from you all soon again.
Thank you. Thank you for your help.
All right, thank you very much. All right. With that item complete, I believe that concludes our workshop session items, which takes us on to board and staff items. The first item on our agenda is review and action on the approval of the previous month's minutes. Laura, did you receive any comments or revision on the minutes that were sent out?
I did not.
Do any members have any revisions they would like to provide? And if not, is there a motion that a member would like to make?
I move approval of the May minutes and payment to the clerk.
All right, we have a motion to approve the minutes and pay the secretary. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Zellman. All those in favor respond by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions?
I abstain.
That was an abstention from Mr. Reynolds, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
All right, hearing that, the motion passes with one abstention. All right. Treasurer's report. Laura?
Hold on, I'm still taking a note. I'm still writing things down. Okay. All right, so the treasurer's report for this month was $18,949.25. And that the only payments last month were to payment of the secretary.
All right, thank you very much, Laura. Any comments from members? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item, bylaw or administrative bylaw updates. That's me, Mr. Daniel. So as we discussed last time, I had proposed 2 revisions to our bylaws. One was focused on attendance and providing a little bit more of a robust procedure for tracking member attendance, as well as steps that would be taken if we did not, we had successive member non-attendance and what we might do about those actions. In addition to that, there was also proposed language that we talked about a little bit in the past about how the ARB would notify the Board of Supervisors that we would choose to participate in a Section 106 consultation. Since then, I've talked with Laura, and that language has gone to the county attorney for their input at the current moment. So I have nothing more to say than I'm waiting to hear back from the lawyers. Elise has shared me some observations following our meeting on what the History Commission had dealt with. At this current moment, until I hear back, particularly regarding the 106 consultation one, I don't think there's going to be much action for us to take, because that one, obviously, we're going to need to hear from the county attorney on what they think about what we're proposing. All right, seeing no comments from anyone on the screen, let's move on to the next item. Review and approval of the ARB remote policy.
So I do have to apologize in advance. I don't think anybody was able to look at that. There was, I don't know how they did this, but the document was like locked for editing and copying and pasting and modification and all sorts of stuff. And so we got it from our county attorney's office. So I went ahead and edited it and sent it out. But Miss Aubrey let me know that we could not see it. So what this document basically is, I'll give you a quick overview, and then hopefully I can send it out to you next month. But there is a larger overall discussion, and some of you may know the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission is already back in person. I was actually at Planning Commission last night. There's a nod that at some point, all the boards and commissions, including the ARB, will be back meeting in person. So there needs to be some discussion on our end as well of what that might look like. We got some guidance from the county attorney's office that it might be as soon as next month, but that is not the case anymore because of the fact that county has no end date to its declaration of emergency. We are allowed to continue to meet virtually until the county decides to end its emergency declaration. So with that being said, we're status quo for right now. We're not required to change, but in the next couple of months, I will say we probably will be asked to start meeting back in person. And just wanted some discussion, if you will, Chris, about what that may look like, where we're going to meet, safety protocols, things like that, and kind of expectations. And I want to hear from you all about that, about what you would need to be comfortable coming back in person. And knowing full well, like I said, it's not going to be next month. I'm anticipating it might be September for the first one. That's when county staff is required to go back into the office for a couple of days a week. So it's after Labor Day. But I'm assuming at that point, we'll probably be coming back in person or shortly after. So with that being said, I have a meeting room reserved. It's not our normal meeting room, which isn't our normal one anymore, but 9 and 10, the one with the windows across the hall. I don't have that one reserved. It was not available. So we have another one reserved, which is smaller. So there's all concerns about social distancing, wearing masks, if people are even comfortable coming back. But we do need to, after, and Chris, I'll work with you on this. Sorry, I'm just talking a lot here. At the July meeting, we'll have to change our motions at the beginning because it's no longer a state of emergency from the state declaration of emergency. It'll be a local government state of emergency. So I'll work with you on those and getting those together. But I just wanted to hear, there'll be no requirement for masks or anything like that when we come back because all those provisions have been lifted. We can make recommendations that everybody has it, but I'm interested to hear if people are even comfortable coming back. And I know it's a very personal decision, and feel free if you don't want to or send me comments separately. Don't feel like you have to air all your comments here, but just trying to get some discussion going about your concerns moving forward.
Thanks, Laura. I think obviously I agree with Laura that it's a lot of personal thought and feelings go into this, but I think I'd rather just go around the room to everybody and just hear if you have any observations to add so that everyone gets their chance to speak about this. So Michelle, as always, you're first on deck.
A couple of things. One is, since I personally am hard of hearing and I wear hearing aids, I have discovered over the course of the last year and a half that when everyone is wearing a face mask, it really is detrimental to my being able to hear and understand what a person is saying, because being able to see a person's face and mouth does help a person who's hard of hearing to be able to hear. So if we were to meet in person, you know, I would really like to have a microphone for everyone. I know that Laura, at my request in the past, she had tried to get a microphone in the room to help, because there are a lot of people, speakers, and some of our own members who are very soft spoken, and they're very hard to hear across a room. So so that's one issue I personally would have. And one thing I've really enjoyed about meeting virtually is I can hear everyone because they're all right in front of their speaker or their you know, their computer, and I can turn the volume up when when a person is speaking very softly. The other thing I will say is, you know, it takes me an hour to get to the government center from where I live. So that's 2 hours round trip every time we meet. And that's 2 hours that is not spent on the road when we're meeting virtually. And I notice in the proposed language, which I happen to get from Jill Cooper, for the policy, it talks about, well, you have to be a disabled person, or you're caring for a disabled person, or you can maybe once or twice a year, you can be excused for an unstated good reason. But it does, you know, there may be a lot of board members, not just necessarily on the ARB, but other boards and commissions that maybe they would prefer to not have to do all that driving in order to participate in a meeting. And if they could participate virtually, that would be a good thing for those individuals. So I think that's all I have to say at this time.
Thanks, Michelle. John?
Chris, can I respond to that, or do you want me to
Yeah,
wait till
sure.
the end?
Laura, if you've got any observations you want to
You
add, by all
can,
means.
I can wait to the end if you'd like. But
No, if you've got something, I think, because we're going to go around the horn with this, please, if you've got something, share it.
So with that, Michelle, I think what they're looking at is the issue with the restriction on how many times you can be absent is that there's a required quorum in person that you have to have if there's not a state of emergency. So eventually, once the county lifts its state of emergency, I call it butts and seats, but you're going to have 6 people in a room together, even if you have this remote policy in place. So that's why I think they're trying to have some sort of, you know, fairness, and it's a FOIA requirement to have that quorum in person. So I can look into it further and kind of get some inquiries about if we can, you know, up that number, or the ARB maybe can take a different stance on that. But I hear you, and same thing for me. I think same for everybody. It's nice to just log on at 6:15 and then log off at 9:30 when we're done, without having to drive. Like a day like today would have been very difficult for everybody to get there. But I hear you, and I think that concern is duly noted, and I think at some point in the future we're moving in that direction. I just don't think, I'm just not sure. Yeah.
Thanks, Laura. John?
Yeah, I would second Michelle's comments. I think it would be very helpful if the county can install an audio system in the conference rooms so everybody can hear equally. And one of the things that's come out of the pandemic, I think, is the idea of inclusivity. And so everybody can hear equally is part of that. And so I think that's an important consideration. Everybody needs to be able to see equally, and that sort of thing. I also support the idea of having the ability for some people, maybe not everybody, maybe in excess of the required quorum, butts and seat quorum, that is, to be able to participate in a virtual basis. And so I think that's something to be considered. I don't think people are going to be comfortable simply going back to the way it used to be, because the way it used to be wasn't perfect. So if we're going to go back to something, why don't we make it better than it was? And I think an audio system and a better video system in the conference rooms that we meet in would certainly address that need. And like Michelle, it's a 50-mile commute round trip for me to go to the Taj, to the government center. And so we used to get a stipend. I think it was $25 a meeting or something like that, if I don't remember the exact amount. But it was enough to cover gas.
It was 50.
It was 50? Yeah, thank you,
Started
Elise.
25 and then it went to 50.
Yeah, okay. And then it got eliminated.
Yeah.
We also used to be able to park under the building, and that went away as well. I mean, so there were, we have lost differential treatment over the years that made it easier to participate in these meetings. And those have all gone away. And if they're going to incite us to come back, I think they need to offer some inducement for us to come back. And so that would be my impression. Now, I am comfortable going back into a setting where I know all you folks. I trust you guys. The one thing I can say that has been successful is whatever behaviors we have exhibited over the past year, to my knowledge, it's been 100% successful. And so I assume that we're all going to continue to behave in a manner that would allow that success to continue. And so for that reason, I would be comfortable coming back. And if it would be helpful to other people, I would be willing to do so. I would consider doing so without a mask. Currently, I am very gradually socially re-engaging. I haven't been to church yet, and that's 14 months. I've done it online. I've been to these meetings, but not in person. And so I'm very gradually working my way back in, but it's a process. It will take some time for everyone to be comfortable.
Thanks, John. Ms. Wan?
Yes, I am totally with John and Michelle on this. I do still wear mask whenever I go out, but I'm not as afraid as when the pandemic started. I do have one incident in our office when we host a meeting and the guests come in that did not have a mask and do not want to have a mask. So I like John, I trust you all, but it is the guest who join our meeting. We do not know, so I don't know what kind of policy we want to put in or no policy at all. That's my thinking at the moment.
It might be something, and I'm just talking from other groups that I've heard dealing with the same issue. We can make recommendations, for example, we can say, if we're all comfortable and then maybe the person that's speaking takes their mask off while they're speaking, we have a podium and the person, a better sound system too, but have the person speaking at the podium, take their mask off or whatever for that part. There's also, we can limit, I was thinking for Holland Hills, John's going to round up his friends and show up to the ARB meeting with, 50 plus people, and we're all in this tiny little room. How do we deal with that? And so one of the comments was maybe we just limit the amount of people that are in a room and have it broadcasted somewhere else, so that, the people could see it as there as well. So there's lots of things bubbling around, including increased technology and things like that. And we're just really, like I said, thank you for all these comments, because I'm really just trying to gauge where we are and how comfortable everybody is and what their concerns would be coming back. So thanks.
Mr. Kalinsky.
Yeah, so obviously I agree, because I'm traveling from afar, so that extra 2 to 2.5 hours especially that 6 p.m. rush hour traffic, that extra time gained is greatly appreciated. The one thing that I have here is I have a 3-monitor setup, and I'm able to keep the agenda up on one, and motions, and also all the presentations that I could kind of look back and review as it's being presented. So some of my questions or some of my things that are, curiosities that are stoked, I could either answer or at least prepare myself better for, my turn when kind of evaluating what's in front of us. So I do think that I perform better, or that, this is more helpful for me to give a better analysis or better opinion. But I understand that it's not necessarily set up for us to stay this way. But anything that would extend this for a while, or at least give us the occasional option for that, I'm all for it.
So what I'm hearing is everybody that lives in Mount Vernon is going to, on a rotating basis, be virtual. That's what I'm hearing.
And John and I used to carpool out
Right,
there,
right.
just to save gas, give each other company, because a good 2+ hours in the car every night.
And I'm hoping we'll do better at having meetings off site. But I mean, the ones in Lorton, I know you guys really liked, because it was much closer to you all than making it across county. So
At least you're having good company in that car ride, right, Steve?
I you know what I do miss is the valuable insight and the learning that I get from John. I really do miss that.
All right, Mr. Reynolds, who I don't think we've ever actually seen in person, actually, now that I'm observing.
No, I don't think, in fact, I can tell you 100% we've not seen each other. So I don't really have too many problems with coming. I do appreciate the short, the lack of, commuting does make this, forum much easier for me. I appreciate that. I agree with Mr. Kalinsky in terms of the ability to have the monitor on one side for the for the presentation, all that kind of stuff, and then one side for the meeting itself. That's also really super helpful. But that can be overcome. I think the ability to occasionally be able to do the Zoom meeting is also really beneficial. Having served on other boards in the past, we were just doing it by phone calling in. It's virtually impossible. You couldn't hear, you couldn't participate. But with the Zoom meetings, they're really way more effective. So that's basically my thing. I mean, I think it's probably time for us to get back to normal, so to speak, and do our public duty in the public square, so to speak.
Thank you. Ms. Murray.
I definitely like the commute, and I think the rest of the History Commission also likes their commute. So I'll be sort of sorry to lose that, but I think we're going to have to go back to it inevitably. I was wondering if it was possible to do the Homes Run Acres hearing on another night when the boardroom is available, so that we could have the distancing, and we could also have the place for the people to stand and talk, and we could have some space.
The Holland Hills one, you mean?
The Holland Hills, because some of these people are going to be very intense.
Really? Yes, I hear you. I am hopefully planning on that. I'm anticipating that we'll have the Holland Hills one in September at the ARB. So yes, I am looking for a much larger room. conference room 11, which is where you saw the board meetings before they went back to the board auditorium. That has a lot of technological capacity that we might be able to do that, and has a lot of spacing and monitors and computers and things. It's just a matter of getting it available. So I
I'll observe, Laura, we can switch the date of our meeting if we need to. So if that, I don't want to jump in. I'm not yet got to me yet, but I agree with Elise that if there's a better space available and we know we're going to have a meeting with contentious and a lot of public participation, I think this board could very easily elect to alter its schedule to accommodate that need. That makes a completely logical decision.
Or potentially have a special meeting.
Or a special meeting, that's true. We can hope, maybe we separate it from our regular meeting and have a Holland Hills only meeting.
I'm just throwing that out there as an option, because there's going to be some comment on it. So, but yes, I will look for another meeting space and try to find some dates now, because I'm sure it will get fuller and fuller as we get closer. So our date in September, I think, is September 9th. I'm saying that, I think it's the 9th, but I will look into it and look for a bigger meeting space.
Okay, Joe, what do you got for us?
Well, it's interesting. This has been on my mind for some time. And I'll try and be as short as I can. I own an office. I run an office of 15 people. Okay, we have 6 of those people, 5 of those people work remotely across the country. No problem at all. And some of them just moved out of the area because of the pandemic or because of job changes with their spouses or whatever. When we go back in September, our office will go back in September. Right now we've been out and we'll continue to stay out only if we want to go in right now. And really, everyone has worked remotely. They've been successful in doing this. And we've done it before the pandemic too. But after September, Labor Day, is that we will have not full-time all the time inside the office. It'll be part virtual and part in person. So it'll be 3 days in, 2 days out, something like that. Everybody's on that. It's a benefit. It seems like it's a win-win. I've talked to other agencies, different jurisdictions that I work in and so forth, Arlington, DC, Alexandria, and so forth. What I ascertained from that is that they're still keeping the virtual thing there. And I was at a conference today virtually, heaven forbid, for designers and so forth in Baltimore. And what the gap in, I think the new normal is not the way it used to be. I think we're all in agreement with that. I think the new normal is going to be to get participation, especially from the neighborhood groups and so forth. Virtual is the way to go for everything. And I think as a board member, I would like to have the opportunity to do virtual as desired, not necessarily as a mandatory number of times you must be in person and not be in person. I remember Linda Blank said once, it's a volunteer position. We should not be so forceful on our rules. She said that when I first started this stuff. So so when I hear these new rules and regulations, you must be here a certain amount of time and everything because a personal thing, this is volunteer. And I know, but I know our jurisdictions elected us or appointed us based upon our recommendations from other professionals to be part of this group, and I respect that. So I'm not going to go overboard and say, hey, well, I'll never attend because I don't want to go. But no, that's not me. I welcome the opportunity to be at these meetings, but I would support virtual without being forced to be in person. Frankly, I still wear a mask all the time. I'm fully vaccinated and so forth. In our office, if there's nobody vaccinated come in, we'll require them to wear a mask, or they don't come into my office. So I think, and especially when they have these guests and so forth, with the people that come in, you never know what's going on, and you read the news, and maybe you read too much news and everything about the pandemic. Is it gone or is it not? From the standpoint is, there's enough people that are not vaccinated in parts of this country that it could spur off into something else, which is south of the area here, way south. And that's my concern. People travel throughout the area and so forth. So will this ever go away? Probably. I don't think so. I think we'll all get booster shots accordingly and so forth. But that's just my personal opinion on stuff. But getting back to the virtualness, I think what I've heard from everybody at this conference, as well as my co-professionals and so forth, from public agencies to private industries and so forth, the virtual has been a home run for everything. It's kind of like a wake-up call. This is the new norm. And I hate to use that term so often, but It is, I think, the way it should. I think it's more proactive for getting things done from a community standpoint, as well as from a professional standpoint. I think the day of going to a meeting every day in person is no more. I think it's going to be, some will be virtual, some will not be. Okay, so I guess I'd like to bring that into the public forum here, is have the opportunity to just make the decision. You said it, guys. Commute. Time is very valuable in our times. We can review stuff more at home and so forth. I strongly recommend that we don't be so forceful saying everybody must be here for a quorum. We can have a quorum virtually like we do now, and partially virtually and partially in person. Those who want to come in person, that's their prerogative. So I guess I think going back to the way it used to be, I think John said, yeah, that's not the way it's going to be. It's going to be a blend. I think you're going to get more participation and probably better attendance virtually sometimes because of the distance factor for some of the things we hear. And I think it behooves us to try and force upon in person, since we all have experienced this for the last year and a half. I think, let's face it, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, we didn't have cell phones and so forth. Now we accept cell phone signatures and so forth like this. So I think I'm a progressive person. We need to change. I like classic cars, but there's also things that you put in classic cars and make them go better. Okay, so I just want to make it this. All I'm going to say is I support virtualism as much as possible, but I also think it's important to meet periodically, but not be forced to. Sorry to be so long-winded.
I love how you tied in the old cars there, Joe. All right, Laura, do you have anything you wanted to throw out there?
Yeah, Joe, all those points are very well taken. I will say from the staff perspective, the virtual meetings are 5 times harder to put together just because of the distribution of everything, coordination, and getting that together. But with that being said, we understand at the county that we are moving towards all hybrid meetings for that purpose and for the community outreach, which has been unprecedented, being able to reach as many people as we have because of having these virtual meetings available. So there will be, I'm not sure if it's going to happen in September because that's our first foray back. So I'm not sure it's going to happen that quickly, but your point is well taken, and I will consult with county attorney's office on the number of meetings that we have, because I don't think this group is the only number of meetings we're required to attend for the ARB. I know this group is not the only group that has that concern. So thank you.
All right, Jason.
I don't envy anybody who has to make these decisions. I've been the president of my law firm since September, and you get people on both extremes. COVID isn't real. COVID is the scariest thing in the world, and everything in between, and trying to solve those problems to make everybody comfortable is difficult. I see really no issue when we do our normal meeting like we're doing tonight, although I understand Laura's concern that she just voiced, that it's more work for staff, certainly more convenient for us. I agree with what I think Steve and Joe were saying about, I can have this up on my phone, but then I can have my iPad here and have all my materials accessible to me. That's very convenient. My only concern, and I think I've expressed it in previous meetings, is not when we have a normal meeting like this, but when we're going to have, and now we've talked about a special meeting, but we have a couple instances coming up in the relatively near future about the potential creation of new historic overlay districts that's going to require, or that's going to involve, significant public participation. And one who has been practicing law virtually for 1.5 years, which is, pretty much an unmitigated disaster when that's being done virtually. There's a lot of clunkiness, and, doing this meeting, us doing everything, I think that's fine. Having a meeting where you have 60 or 70 people on the attendee list and giving them 3 minutes to talk and trying to work through that doesn't make a ton of sense to me. I think that's going to be difficult. I mean, Kay's not here, but Lisa's here, Laura's here. We've participated in those Holland Hills meetings that were initially in person, and then we kind of did some hybrid and did them remotely. And there's high emotions, and people talk over each other and yell at each other, interrupt each other. So my concern is more for those specific meetings. I agree that this is voluntary service. I agree that it's more convenient to do this virtually. Certainly possible for the public to participate virtually, not a problem. I just get concerned about how well it would go in a virtual environment where we have a significant amount of public participation. So, but I don't disagree really with anybody else's comments.
Thanks, Jason. I will add that this has been a topic of conversation in my agency, as well as a topic of conversation in the Reston Task Force that I participate in. And it was a heated debate about that as well, with the pros and cons of digital being espoused on all sides. Many folks pointing that digital has eliminated many obstacles, but I was keen to point out that there were at least 3 members of the task force that could not hear or could not see and were having issues with technology. So the sword cuts both ways. I think in the future, I agree with everyone here that we're going to be going into a different format in the future, and we need to think about what that's going to represent. Laura's pointed out that there are certain legal requirements that are on us that require certain presences during meetings once we leave this emergency period, which I think is going to require us to take a look at our bylaws and see what we might be able to do regarding a policy that might allow digital participation. But the biggest challenge in that is the tech side of things. And I really think that's the obstacle we're going to have to overcome if we're going to be able to do that successfully. Because it's fine. I am fully in support of if we had members attending digitally, but a quorum in person. But we have to be able to have that member have access to those materials. We have to be able to hear that member and all those other requirements, which, as we've seen by the wonderful conference rooms that we get thrown into, is, we're lucky at best if we have a working mic, because poor Laura's been able to bring in whatever she can find, let alone having equipment that is fully ready to support us. With Michelle's comment about her concerns, I think that's a really good point that staff needs to bring forward to the county with the One Fairfax policy. If we're trying to crush really make things inclusive and really focus on equity, then people should be able to hear everybody within a meeting, and we should have meeting spaces that are conducive to that. Right now, this format is solving that problem for us, and that's great. And I don't want to then force Michelle into a situation where now she's not going to be able to hear people, and we don't have rooms that accommodate for that. That's just, and that's just one example, but that's just a failure right there. I also think, Laura, that if we're talking about meeting space not meeting our tech needs, then maybe we do need to look at other spaces, as well as, maybe we do need to switch from Thursdays if that's not going to work to get us the right space we need to actually provide the right technology. So I'm comfortable of kind of giving you a wide berth of exploration into the options that are available to us and coming back so that we can make changes in response to that. Because I'd rather us not pigeonhole ourselves into the county government center. I'll point out it's only about a 30-minute drive for me. It's not too bad. I have been spoiled because I usually, if I wrap these meetings up at the right time, I get to go upstairs and do bedtime. Before that, I didn't get to. I got home well past then. So I have also benefited from literally the walk away from the meeting situation. But I do recognize one of my federal job and other staff has a huge lift on this side. So, and particularly now that Laura is literally pulling double duty with Nicole departing from us, which we'll talk about a little bit more later, I think we need to find something that's also equitable to you, Laura, and if whoever else we get, that we're not, how are we handling submittals then? Because eventually if we do start to go back, are we mailing materials back out? Or do people like these digital submissions? Because I, for one, really do like these things, but if I'm sitting at a table, I'm not going to have, just like Steve's pointed out, the several screens here that I can look at everything. I'm going to probably want some materials potentially to look at. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult to provide comments to an applicant because I won't have the layout unless we have a setup on the screen and things like that. So I guess I'm comfortable going back and being around you all, just like everyone else said. And I do think that there might be an expectation. I'm going to shoot myself in the foot on this and saying that the chairman may have an expectation to probably be there in person if they're chairing the meeting in the most parts. I don't want to throw a sword on myself, but I do feel like we do have to have some semblance of a public forum. And so there needs to be some kind of representation there if we have people from the public coming. And lastly, I agree. If we're going to have complicated meetings like Holland's Hills, then let's use our authorities to potentially make those better managed. And I agree with Jason. If we're running that meeting digitally, I was worried how that meeting was going to go if we're still going to do it digitally right now, simply because it's going to be very difficult to manage input from the public in this forum compared to in a room where we could simply say your time is ended, please take your seat. Either one's going to have its own set of challenges. No, that's all I've got.
Chris, to underestimate staff, we've had 2 large community meetings. I think Holland Hills had over 100 people, and we did it in January, and then Wellington, I think, had 50 people. I mean, so it's been contentious, and we've just given everybody their opportunity to speak.
All right, well, good to know that.
It's good in a way because staff is shielded a little bit more, but I understand.
Well, was that the Wellington one I attended? Yeah. Well, we do need to learn how to cut people off.
You know, I'm getting better at that. But
that wasn't at you, Laura.
No, I know, but it's with this WebEx program that we have, basically everybody comes in as an attendee, and we have them put in the chat if they'd like to speak, and we have like Kira would be managing chat and saying, okay, Lori, here's the next question, and then I would respond to it. So we've developed a system so we can do it, but I think that it would be better served if that meeting was in person, possibly getting the supervisor to come to the meeting, that type of thing, because it's going to be it's going to be a meeting, right? And then the public hearings are following that very shortly. So anyway, I will look into that, and I will look into other options for that. I will say that I don't know how much you want to change. The government center rooms are probably the best equipped rooms that we have in the county to offer, save the new emergency building that just went up across from the Heritage Building. But we were talking about this with other task force and things about where people were meeting in libraries and cafeterias. And the government center is far and beyond, has better microphones, presentation, projectors, like that type of thing of equipping that type of thing. Not saying there's not anywhere to be improved upon, but because our members are all over the county as well, that's the other issue. But I do not object to possibly having one at maybe the Mount Vernon Supervisor's Office every once in a while to help those.
Well, and we tried that for a little while, and I thought that went rather well when we did do that, because it definitely provided, I think, some relief to some of our members who have to put in some serious commute time. So
right.
And I'll acknowledge, I at one point I was down in Lorton, so I have been there. Yeah. I just moved closer to the government center. You know, I strategically located myself.
But thank you everyone for those comments, and I know we're all thinking about it, and there's no right answer, there's no wrong answer, but it's just all things we're trying to take into account. And there's some stuff that we can definitely fix, like hearing equity and, sound like that type of stuff. There's no excuse for that not to be fixed. But some of the other stuff is going to be like asking the county attorney about, how many times we can remotely meet or how many times someone can be excused. But I do understand all these issues, and thank you for bringing them up. So that I can better kind of plan for you all in the next coming months. So stay tuned.
And lastly, I just think we should continue to move slowly. What the Reston Task Force came out of that after a lengthy discussion, we decided to stay digital. But I'd rather move slowly and cautiously than jump into some weird hybrid and have a mess of technology issues.
We don't want to be the guinea pig, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I definitely don't want us to be the guinea pig.
I hear that.
John, you raised your hand, I saw too.
Yeah, I think, like it or not, we will be a guinea pig. There's no two ways about it. The one thing I would offer is that one of the things we have the opportunity to do is to talk to our individual district supervisors and say we're willing and able to come back. However, we have learned that the conditions that we had prior to this pandemic aren't conducive to the most efficient running of meetings. We need better sound systems. We need better audiovisual aids. And just, if we tell the individual supervisors that when these plans come down and they start asking questions about it, then they better have answers.
Sage advice right there. We see, it's like we were in the car with John driving back right there. Okay, well, thanks everybody for your candid thoughts on that. I think we gave Laura a lot to take back to staff on that. Let's talk about another staff policy, one Fairfax policy signatures.
So just one note, just for closing, sorry, just look for the remote policy for next month once I figure out how to format it, and then please review it before the meeting so that we can vote on it and take it into account, because as soon as the emergency statute ends, we want to make sure we have at least something in place, and we can modify it to the number and that type of thing at a later time. But we just need to have something in place moving forward.
Okay.
So,
Thanks, Laura.
Yeah, one Fairfax policy signature. So this is something Nicole was trying to explain to me going out the door, but basically that there's this process for going to sign the one Fairfax policy thing with each BAC member, and I don't have access to it, so I can't tell who's done it or not, so I can't harass you quite yet, but I need to contact the person in charge of it and do that. So if you haven't done it, I think it's due, and Karine, I know you have a BAC as well. I think it's due June 23rd. Is that right? Or the end of the month? But it's due at the end of the month. So if you haven't done it and you're having trouble doing it, please email me so that I can get you on the right track. And that's something on my to-do list.
It's a little cumbersome, the process, but yeah, if you have had an issue with it, I definitely, the county materials were not super helpful in walking folks through it, but yeah.
Just let me
folks,
know.
make sure you get that done if you haven't already.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I don't have access to it, so I don't know who's done it. So stay tuned. So the next, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Laura. I was looking to move to the next item. Review and
Okay.
comment on the HOD guidelines.
Yeah, so instead of having a presentation from Sarah Vonish and Traceries, I think you all know kind of the track that we're on with them. So what they did for this month was they provided me the drafts for Colvin Run Mill, St. Mary's Church, Lake Ann, and Pohick Church, and asked me to have you all review them and provide any comment back by June 18th, which is August. That doesn't help me. June 18th, which is next Friday, so that they can go ahead and make those edits, and then we can move forward to the next batch. So I think there's been the overall ones you have all seen at least one time and gotten the formatting put together. And I think we did Bull Run Bridge in January, but this is kind of the next set that we're moving forward, and I think there'll be at least 2 more sets for you all to review. And then after that, after we review all of them, we'll be going to the wider community and getting input. And I don't know what that's going to look like yet, and whether or not that's in person or virtual or both. Maybe we'll do one virtual meeting and a couple in-person meetings. But and then at some point in the far future, we will ask you all to adopt those guidelines when we're all done.
All right, thanks, Laura. I would definitely encourage folks, if you haven't already started looking at these, in particular, I mean, I would say all 4 of these are ones where we have had extensive input in the past on types of projects. I mean, I barely think of a meeting where we didn't have Colvin Run coming at us for some reason, but I think, again, Lake Ann, Pohick Church, St. Mary's have all come up in the past. So this is our chance, obviously, to provide some significant input into these that might really help with some of the future submissions we get. So go to it. I'm sure Michelle has already gone into them and totally found everything wrong with them, since she's been our astute reviewer so far.
I've only looked at 2 so far, but I will get to all 4.
Thank you, ma'am.
They're only 100 pages each, I think. I'm not too far off. I think they're like, they're good.
But I think, Laura, you are right. The obviously the history information on each of those is something that, there can be mistakes and errors in, but I really do think the recommendations, particularly the specific ones for each HOD, those are some of the places where we could really make some changes from what we've seen in the past. If we see something that has been habitual and a problem, I'd love to be able to instead point to these as references to developers as opposed to, the archaic ones we have right now. So. All right. Well, Laura, if you could be so polite as to maybe give us a reminder midway through the week, that would be great, I think, if you could think you can get that. You're muted on us, though.
To talk to myself. Next Wednesday, I'll send you a reminder.
Okay. Thank you so much. All right. I don't think there are any other administrative items, discussions, and updates and reports, right?
Yes.
All right. Dunloring School, Miss Murray.
I think I'm putting Elise on the spot. And to be honest, I don't really remember what I wanted to talk about this one. So I'm really sorry.
Elise, do you want to talk about Dunloring Schools?
I can talk real quick. I can talk about it.
Sorry, Elise.
The school board has decided to repurpose the Dunloring Center to return it to its original use as a school. And members of the History Commission have read about this and are concerned. It is on the Fairfax County Inventory of Historic Sites. It is our publicly available example of how to fill out a single site inventory nomination if you wish to read it. It's on our website. From what I have heard last week and haven't heard the updates, is the school board has not really made any decisions of what they're going to do. I think it may be mostly interior and not a lot of exterior, personally, just because they don't have a bond money sitting there designated for it. But anyway, the idea is that most of the review possibilities through the county plan come to the Architecture Review Board. So the History Commission wants to work with the Architecture Review Board to make sure that whatever is done with the Dunloring School is compatible.
All right, thanks, Elise. I there was communication between me and the chairman of the History Commission about this briefly, and I obviously indicated that we would also, obviously, while it doesn't fall within our purview over the HOD, this is something we would equally be supportive in seeing a proper reuse situation. And we talked about what the next best steps would be, and obviously I think engaging county staff and engaging the right points of contact to make sure that folks know there's an interest in this, which is something we all know is the only way we really get heard on us and our sister commission is when we start to raise issues with folks about, hey, this is a heritage resource and we're here to help provide advice on those. Maybe come seek advice from us.
Well, the person who is designated to handle it is our only representative for Providence, and she cleverly we asked her to contact the school board. She cleverly thought of Supervisor Palchek, which was the person to talk to. So awareness is to the highest levels now, and it's just going to be a little while before the information trickles back to us.
Well, and Laura, I think like any other situation that involves these unique projects, I mean, the ARB would always love to have county staff come seek our input on it. I think that's really the big thing. That's basically what our role would be, is to provide some kind of input on these types of developments. And that's, what I'm trying to build into the comp plan for Reston is, hey, come talk to these boards. They're filled with experts, So anything we can do to help encourage that, let me know if that's outreach or if that's something that at a staff level you guys can engage and let folks know that we would have an interest in hearing from them in the future.
Okay, we'll do.
All right, thank you, Elise. Any other comments from any other board members on that one? All right, seeing none. George Mason University Master Plan.
So John might know more about this than I do, but there's some proposed plans at George Mason University to take down some older, in quotes, buildings that are not of particular use anymore. And since it's state-owned property, we were trying to figure out if VDHR had any impact. And this is also from our former ARB member, Jason Sutton, who is very keen and aware of everything happening in George Mason. John, did you have any further information or insight on that one?
Yeah, I've been in touch with Jason about this. I've also been in touch with VDHR about this. They are aware of it, and they're trying to figure out, as you pointed out, how to intercede in this. However, since they're a state agency and it's a state university, they should have more standing than we potentially might. The basic issue is they're going through a master plan for all of their campuses. They've got 4 campuses of George Mason. It is the original campus, the main campus, that's the one that caused concern. Jason, being in Fairfax City, is very attuned to all of this. And they are proposing to take what's known as the quad, or for someone who's been around the George Mason University for a long time, the original 4 buildings formed a quad in shape, and they had the remarkable names of north, east, south, and west. They now have given names, I believe, but those are the oldest campus buildings. They're the first ones. They are what you might expect from a 1960s vintage academic building on a college campus. They're robustly constructed. They show some age, but they're still there. And there was actually a presentation on their new master plan today, which I listened in on. And the consultant that they've hired, a respected consultant, a guy named, what's his name? Gregory Brody, I think is his name. Anyway, it's a 2-member firm, at least 2 members in the principal's name, that has done a lot of corporate and campus planning. So they're an experienced firm. And what they're proposing to do is to create an axis through the middle of George Mason University, which goes right through this quad, and will remove them. And this is down the pike kind of a thing. He said that the university has conducted an architectural survey, and they've determined that the buildings are no architectural significance, although he did acknowledge they're getting a fair amount of pushback from alumni. And he said that the buildings may have sentimental significance, but not architectural merit. So that was his statement today. So we'll have to wait and see on that. That's as much as I can tell you.
Okay, thanks, John. I think, obviously, as you pointed out, and as Laura pointed out at the beginning, unless we have a real hook on this one, like a federal review or something like that, there's going to be limited opportunities for us to opine on it, depending upon where it's coming from. So
that's correct.
I guess with that, if there's no other input on it, Jason's been including John and I in all those updates. So if we hear any more, obviously we'll keep sharing during meetings. All right, let's see what is next on our list here. Richmond Highway BRT.
So I added a couple more, Chris, to the list of never-ending list of things we have to update on. So I wanted to add the more kind of issue ones ahead of time. So another one that came up was Mount Vernon Memorial Highway trail improvements along Doe Creek. And John brought this up last month. It's partially within the Woodlawn Historic Overlay District, just on the southern edge by the grist mill. And so we did being John and I, did some outreach and got some information. And John was going to give a quick overview for me of that project and proposal.
Okay, well, sorry, I have to unmute. No, I am unmuted. Okay, I'm ready before I realized it. Yes, I discussed this and I showed you some images that are available on the county website of the extension of the bike trail, Mount Vernon bike trail, from Mount Vernon Mansion over to Route 1, which will it will involve the construction of a pedestrian bridge across Doe Creek, adjacent to the existing highway bridge. And they said that, actually they sent an email, I think, to Laura saying that this is FCDOT, said, we don't have to apply for a building permit, so there's no reason for us to come to the ARB. But they're talking about constructing a bridge, filling in wetland and floodplain area, constructing a retaining wall. It was like they're going to have a building permit at some point. So we'll see about that. But so far, at least, they've been kind of stiff-arming us. I think Laura has made arrangements for them to come and make an information presentation, not submit an application at the July meeting, correct? Right? Yeah. And she's nodding. Okay. And then I also contacted the Supervisor Stork's land use aide, a guy named Nick Reinhardt. He didn't know anything about it, and he said, well, really, in our district, this issue would have been a transportation aid issue, and unfortunately, our transportation aid left the employee of the county a couple of weeks ago, so there's really nobody to ask about it. But nevertheless, he said he would look into it. So that's what's going on. I did a little further research on the county website today, discovered that there is a trails, sidewalks, and something else committee. And representation on that includes the Fairfax County Park Authority. And the person who represents the Park Authority on that committee is our own, I'm drawing a blank, Elizabeth.
Beth Ionetta. Yeah, Elizabeth.
Yeah, Beth Ionetta, Elizabeth Ionetta, who for many years was our secretary or transcription person. And so she would have known if this said, but this committee may not get down into the weeds about design issues like this, but she should have recognized that if it came to that committee for review. So anyway, at this point, we don't know what's going on. FCDOT is so far stiff-arming us on it. But nevertheless, I will continue to pursue this.
And John, I did reach out. Beth forwarded me to Andy Galusha, who's another Fairfax County Park Authority person who might have more familiarity with the project. I just wasn't able to get in touch with them by today. So we will have an update next time.
Okay, well, as long as we're on Woodlawn, this would impact the Woodlawn Historic Overlay District. I guess almost 2 weeks ago now, Steve Kalinsky and I were invited by Martha Caitlin to go look at the Woodlawn Friends Meeting House, where they had begun their project to replace the porch, and in doing so, they uncovered some damaged foundations under the original part of the meeting house. And they asked Steve and I to come and take a look at it, and yeah, we agreed. Yeah, there's an issue there, and there's going to be another meeting tomorrow. Steve and I don't know if we were able to go or not, but Steve and I have been invited. We've also invited Al Cox, historical architect, who used to be the ARB person for Alexandria City, and Martin Howell, who's another Mount Vernon district resident who's had long experience with historic buildings. So we're going to take another look at it tomorrow. And Laura, I believe you're coming. Is that correct? Yeah, but she's nodding. Okay.
I'll see you guys there.
You'll be there. Okay, good.
That's
okay.
My excuse is I'm getting out of the house. And...
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So ARB functions in person do already continue. So anyway, we'll keep you posted on that.
Thanks, John. I appreciate you keeping an eye on that one down there on your side of the county. All right, Association Drive. I think, Laura, the last thing we had was obviously we provided our comments. Don't know if there's been much heard since then.
No, for Richmond Highway BRT and for Association Drive, I don't really have an update for you.
I will say, just as an interesting observation, during the Reston Task Force last Monday, we were going through the several different land use areas in the comp plan for Reston, and we talked about Association Drive. And there was a very interesting, and I think it's videotaped conversation about that area. And a lot of the task force members expressed a very keen interest in maintaining that green open space that Association Drive is indicative of through its design. And I highlighted that is a feature of Association Drive that came about in it, and point out that it is now a heritage resource and a listed one, or it was listed, but determined eligible. I don't know if keeper determination, does that immediately give listing? Is that what that?
No.
Okay.
No.
but pointed that out, and we highlighted that there should be considerations in development there that might try to reuse or adapt those structures if possible. Whether or not that's going to materialize in language in the comp plan, I don't know. The only other thing I thought that was pretty interesting was they talked about Folger Pratt and early conversations with them about development there. And apparently, though I was not there for that meeting because it was before we got added to it, there was definitely some divided opinions on what was being proposed, that it seemed to not be keeping in mind the landscape. So I don't know all the comments there, but it seems like fellow groups of us don't necessarily all agree with how developments are proceeding. So I think we are trying to get some type of consideration language in there, at least, so that if there is other development in the future, it at least has to think about it, as opposed to in the past, not. That doesn't mean anything for Soapstone, though. Obviously, we know Soapstone is happening, but we gave our input on that.
Yeah, and I from the Folger Pratt initial presentation to the ARB several years ago now, it was as densely packed as what they put on the site of the API building. There wasn't a whole lot of open space. It was, I would call it dense pack. They maximized the build-up space within that footprint.
Yeah, unfortunately, the comp plan calls for all of that.
Yeah, well, I know that's one of the problems we're dealing with, is that people who pay attention to these things, we were asleep at the time that the comp plan revisions were done back in 2013, and they went through all the proper hoops and stuff, and none of us picked up on the significance of what was being proposed, and we're now paying the price for that. Across the toll road, the next one that's on the chopping block is Isaac Newton Square. And so that's the next one we got to watch out for. And all, so I've already had some inquiries from folks about, so what's going on over there? So we'll have to wait and see on that. But again, that's you're absolutely right, Elise. That is all as a result of what went on back in 2013.
I'll use that to piggyback on any other observations from the task force. So I'm about to provide an update to the heritage section for Reston, which is mostly going to try to reflect some of the things that we've talked about in general, which were obviously consideration of heritage resources, which we were not seeing really. And I think that language is hopefully there to empower Laura and others to bring it to the attention of proposed development, that these things have to be thought about before they go all the way, just walk all the way to 90%. The idea is that the task force membership will look at what I'm giving, and my hope is that potentially I'll have a chance to show that to all of you as well. I'm going to be honest with you all, the task force process is a wholly new one to me, and I've also learned from Laura that this task force is operating a little differently than other ones. They are actually letting the members of the task force craft language first, as opposed to like staff providing draft language. So it's a totally different ballgame, is what I've kind of learned, is the whole process that we kind of felt not involved in. It's a totally different, it's very different is the best I can say. And I think unless we continue to have an interest in those places around the county that we want to keep our voice in, that's where we're going to have to do it, because this doesn't seem to be any real indication of those processes coming to boards or commissions. We have to come to them, it seems like, because of the way they're managed, as far as I can tell.
Well, if that task force changed from the typical way a task force works, I think maybe we have had an impact, because we raised a lot of issues for the county with the API building. And now we've pushed them into 4F and Section 106 compliance on the Soapstone connector. So at some point, they're going to begin paying attention.
Well, I think there were other factors in Reston that apparently that drew the attention of this task force being different, because I think there was some general frustration from several, the golf courses are one item that we could bring up and talk about, but in general about the TSA and the development there. So there's a lot of public voice in these groups, and it's opened up the plan. So I have, everywhere I can, I've been adding notations about heritage for us. The idea is Laura and Denise and their folks will have to point out the folks, well, if you look in the comp plan, it mentions X, Y, and Z. and it says you should consider going to the ARB. You know, but we all know that may not result in anything, but at least it's there now, unlike with the API and Soapstone, where we really didn't have any hooks. All right, there's my impromptu task force update, Laura. So I guess let's go through the lineup of HODs now. Homes Run Acres.
Well, now since I'm in charge of all of them, it's a little bit it's a little bit easier. No, so Homes Run Acres, we had a work group meeting on May 25th, and started going through some of the contributing and non-contributing, or the structures in the buildings in the different streets, and figuring out which ones we felt were contributing and non-contributing. And then the plan for Homes Run Acres, to give you kind of an overview, is next month, actually, yes, in July, I forget what month I'm in. In July, we're going to have one more meeting, and then we're going to take a little bit of a summer break with them, just because of the limited amount of staff that I have. And that Holland Hills is coming up and has public hearing dates. That one's going to take a little bit of a summer break. So they're going to get the design guidelines. They've gotten the draft design guidelines for Homes Run Acres, and they're reviewing them. And we'll be having another meeting on July 14th with traceries for comments on those design guidelines. And then we'll take a 2-month break, and hopefully once I can get some more staff on board, we'll start up again in September for additional work group meetings. So,
right.
Any questions on Homes Run Acres?
Okay, seeing none. Holland Hills.
Holland Hills. Okay, so Holland Hills, I'm currently drafting the staff report, and that will be starting to go through internal review in the next coming weeks. This Supervisor Stork has asked that we do a community survey, and that is going to be happening this summer. The supervisor's office is completing that survey, and it will be coming from them and not from staff. But to that end, the supervisor wanted the staff report published early so that the community could have it in hand while they were doing the survey. Therefore, we will be publishing our staff report kind of mid-August with the kickoff of the survey. And there'll be about a month for the community to read the staff report, do the survey, and then in September, it's going to be pedal to the metal on having an ARB meeting, having a history commission meeting, and also having a meeting to the Park Authority Board, and then having a planning commission hearing on the 22nd of September. So there'll be a lot of public meetings that month for Holland Hills, but it's just good news because there's a hearing date scheduled, and we're making a lot of progress on that. It's progress. It's not going to be fast progress, but at least we're still moving forward. So.
And Laura, you indicated that right now it sounds like September would be the likely time that we would have that as a meeting item, unless we chose to take up a independent meeting in the same month for it.
Yes. So the issue is that it would either have to be July, August, or September. But the trouble comes in is that we have to authorize the rezoning part of this, even though we've already started the comprehensive plan part, and we're not able to do that until July 13th. And so that's why we're not having it in July. And then we'll talk about the August meeting shortly. And then so that puts us in September. But then in September, you have the opportunity to review the staff report because it'll be published. So I think that's a little bit more helpful than having nothing to review. You at least have that to review and comment on. But yes, looking for that in September. But we would need to have it between the beginning of September. I mean, you could have it in August, but we need to have it in the beginning of September between that and the PC date if you want the ARB comment to go to the PC. If the ARB wants to, when we do the approval, when we recommend action on the item, we want to make sure that we can send that.
And when does that have to be done by, you said? By
September 22nd.
So, my birthday.
Oh, congratulations. Yeah, September 22nd. So we would want to make sure that the ARB meeting happened sometime before that. So it doesn't really leave us a lot of wiggle room for an extra meeting date.
Well, because at that meeting, we would make a vote of whether we would recommend approval to those bodies for this.
I've had other, the board does cases and stuff where reviews, reserves the September meeting only for or we could limit the amount of extra items that we have at the September meeting as well. So that's an option. We can be a little bit more strict on that.
Okay.
So we don't go till midnight. But yeah. River Farm. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Any questions on Holland Hills? John, looking at you.
No.
No. Okay.
All right. River Farm HOD.
River Farm. So River Farm, what we're doing now is the follow-on motion, which has to do with the state legislation piece of it to give the ARB a little bit more oversight on site plans that come in. So instead of just recommendation, ARB would be able to approve or deny site plans, which is a little bit more teeth. And then the other part is provision that may allow the Board of Supervisors to provide public access to the site. And that's where I think the little bit of a sticking point is, where the language is coming straight from the state legislation, but it's a little bit of a legal issue of property rights and allowing public access to a private property depending on who buys it. Because right now, River Farm is owned by the American Horticultural Society, which allowed it to be public and allowed people to come to the property whenever they'd like. But obviously, if it's a private residence, that does not work. So last night, the Planning Commission, that was their biggest issue, was the public access part of it. So the decision was deferred till next week at June 16th. And then that's hopefully will go to the Board of Supervisors on June 22nd for action.
All right. Gum
Not enough,
Springs.
right? All right, Gum Springs. So Gum Springs, I think I sent it to you yesterday or today, but it's a Pride of Fairfax National Register nomination, and Denise worked really hard on getting the grant, of securing the funds and getting the grant, this cost share grant through BDHR, and it was done through Tracers as well. But if you could please review that and provide comment to me by June 25th, I will send you a reminder, Chris. If you could please review that, that's a really that's going to be kind of a springboard into a larger heritage resources survey for Gum Springs. So if you're able to look at that and become familiar with that, that's something that will be kind of on the plate and on our radar as a big ticket item for the next year or so and beyond. Okay.
All right. Let's see. Reston survey, is that
well,
next?
that's the Reston survey and the task force. You kind of already covered that.
Oh, well, I was going to say, no, I do have a Reston survey item to talk about. So in the conversation with Elise and the History Commission regarding the Dunn Loring School, I also brought up the topic because I've been engaging staff in a discussion about the Reston survey, which identified several potential heritage resources. And obviously, for those properties to become heritage resources, they actually have to be nominated or listed by the History Commission, which is not something we do. Those nominations can be done by individuals. They can also be done by the History Commission. And something that, I don't know.
No, not by the History Commission. By History Commission members who volunteer.
Yeah, excuse me, History Commission members who volunteer.
Important distinction.
So an interesting thing we've run into is that there were several resources in Reston that were identified as potentially eligible or were about to be eligible with turning 50, but will never be heritage resources until they actually get listings done for them. And I think that's one of the biggest roadblocks we have when it comes to things like the comp plan, because the comp plan talks about heritage resources. And right now our survey just says there are potential heritage resources in Reston. And so the designation would be a real boon to places like Reston, where we're realizing we have properties that are clearly in jeopardy from encroaching development. And so Elise kindly jabbed back at me and said, well, we could decide to write those in our infinite amounts of free time. But I wanted to bring up the fact that, we really pushed with the History Commission to get this survey done. And we've really been looking at Reston a lot because of the building stock that is definitely aging rapidly and coming under threat of development. There's a second step to this drill that I think has to be continued, and I'm going to poke the History Commission about it a little bit more since I now know a few folks on it. But I definitely wanted to raise the issue to all the ARB members is that, now we know these things, but we still haven't completely sealed the deal on their designation. And obviously they're privately owned in all of the cases with Reston. So I think there are some opportunities for building owners to raise issues with that. But I wanted to bring it up as are there ideas? I will acknowledge I don't have an infinite amount of free time. So writing these is, definitely not an easy thing. And the other thing I'd ask for is, can we not give money to county staff to find a way to write them too?
We could do it the same way we did the survey. I mean, we could ask for a grant, we could ask for a consultant to do it. It's just a matter of doing that. However, I think to your point, though, it would show a lot if we quote unquote divided and conquered, or if someone showed an interest in specific buildings out there, that would be helpful just to get these done. And as to your point, we've never, we have pushed back hard about having staff write any inventory nominations, because it's a little bit of a conflict of interest, because Denise will be reviewing all these inventory nominations. So it's weird for us to research them, write them, and review them. And then Denise would have to coordinate with the History Commission as well to go on their inventory. So the more hands we have in this pot, the better. But there might also be an opportunity. I know this has been floated around before, but working with local colleges and universities to try to get help from researchers and get those things going as well. It's just a matter of organizing that and finding the funding to do that. You can throw money at any problem and it would fix it a little bit, right? But I think it's just the organization of that. And I will tell you right now, county staff, we just can't do that right this second. So we would need help.
I know you're short-staffed, no doubt, right now. But I just wanted to bring it up as this is an opportunity for us if we really have a strong interest in Reston and other places where we've been doing this, because I assume the same problem will happen with the African American survey. If we do that, we will find properties, but not actually have them listed as a heritage resource unless we do the next step. So we may want to talk about how we can partner with the History Commission if there are particular properties. I will say in the task force, most of the clusters, I highly doubt they're going to be under any major threat as a heritage resource, because they are pretty coveted by their own occupants. But there are several other ones, like I think of the gas station in particular is one that, that's a floating property right outside an HOD that really probably should be listed. And so it might be something that we might want to consider as a board, if we could work with the commission about maybe we take on a few of these, or maybe we find some money somewhere.
Yeah, Linda Blank and I are both fond of the gas station, and it was slated for redevelopment in the last plan that came through. We're also looking at multiple property listings as they do with the National Register, so that a core of research could be done on Reston, and then we could springboard from that. I told Chris that I was going to prod my committee, and my members who were looking into it, and they never got back to me. So I guess I have to nag again.
Do we think we can get Linda to do it?
That would be wonderful.
I know.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
At least the gas station, right?
Yeah, and she really did like the gas station.
I'm gonna email. I need an excuse to email her.
That's a
I'm
good
pretty
excuse.
partial to it too, so I don't know. That was one of the ones on my list,
Hey.
other than Samantha's office, which I also really like.
Samantha's gonna do that for us since she works there every day. She can get. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just signing people up. We'll just have like a sign up. We'll just have a sign up list for Reston.
I feel like we definitely should celebrate the survey that was done, but it only bears partial fruit right now, I guess. And so.
And Elise knows better than I do, but it is not a huge lift to get these sites researched and the inventory nomination forms filled out. I think the research on it would probably take the longest part, but like the photographs and that type of piece. I mean, Elise, do you have like an estimate for like how long it might? It's not a huge commitment to do that.
It's a lot lighter than a National Register nomination. I will get Laura to send out the links to the History Commission's website where all that information is shown. So you can see what the Dunlewing School is, and you can also find out the process.
All right. I'd also say if any of you have a partiality to a Reston resource that you might want to do a nomination for, just speak now.
And not just Reston, anywhere in the county. If you see something you like. I mean, I'm serious. I mean, Chris Barbershek did a bank in Burke a while back. That was a really cool, modern looking bank. So, I mean, if you see anything out there, the more eyes we have, the better. But to your point, Reston, yes, we have that, but in that survey, so that's one step up. But yes, it's Elise and I will get together and get to that information. And like I said, not a huge lift. So I'm definitely, Denise would probably be thrilled to be reviewing nominations on the regular.
I'm going to tell you though, too, Laura, at the next task force meeting, I'm going to point out that disconnect when the people review the heritage section, that if there are folks in those neighborhoods that want to get that designation, they could too go to the History Commission and do the forms.
Right.
They could, right. Yeah.
We do like people who know what they're doing in terms of architecture, because I'm struggling with a couple right now that have to do with cemeteries. And
well, considering as well, the golf courses were in that survey. So and there's a lot of passion about those golf courses.
That's been an issue forever. Remember, I lived there from 1991 until 5 years ago, and golf courses never calmed down.
Never has, never will. Okay, well, I won't take any more time on that one, but thanks, Elise, for the insight. And yeah, please share more info on it. Unit 1 University Drive.
So this is John's baby. John has a lot of babies all over the county, but 1 University Drive, it came in as a comp plan amendment and then a rezoning, like I want to say 3 years ago now, John. I want to say 2017, 2018. And we asked them to look at it further. But once again, because it was not on the inventory or within an HOD, we had very little teeth of to be able to review. So we recommended further research, and it kind of just got dropped. So the Park Authority asked for some more architectural resources review in the rezoning application, and it didn't get elevated to the proffers. So long story short, we didn't have any documentation. And then lo and behold, we find out it's a Section 106 because they're asking for federal funding because it's a HUD project. And so now 1 University Drive is now going through Section 106 negotiations. And John, the latest I have is they had a meeting on Tuesday between the state with VBHR and the developer about what to do with the building. And I think the outcome is going to be documentation heavy. I don't think they're looking to save it, but we're looking to get some more documentation out of it. So, John, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add.
Well, yeah, you asked me to put together a little presentation on the building.
Yes. Sure.
And can you share my ability to share?
Yes. Okay, your share button should be ready to go now.
It came on, okay. Now I have to find it on this. I think that's it. All right, are you seeing this?
Yes.
Okay, let me see if I can make the whole slideshow so it'll be bigger.
Is that the little
There.
troll? Is that the little troll thing? Oh yeah, okay, that's.
Did I do it?
Yes.
Are we good? Okay.
Yes.
This is the headquarters of the Redevelopment and Housing Authority for Fairfax County. That is their wood carved logo that is in their boardroom. You're seeing on the left, and that's a sidewalk view from University Drive looking down onto the building. This is an earth-burned brutalist building. It's 1 story, reinforced concrete, obviously, and I will walk you through it. Let's see, how do I do page down here? There we go. Okay, so we're going to walk up the sidewalk here. You'll see the diamond, the square turned on 45-degree angle, and you're going to see that motif throughout. So here it is on the entrance sign. Walking up to the building, you can begin to see there are diamonds above the concrete columns there. They're kind of like stylistically maybe a a column capital, as you were. And this is, again, you can see the diamond shapes. You can see the sunscreen. It was very attuned to solar energy. It got write-ups in the Washington Post magazine for its solar attributes. And this is now walking around up the hill, and you can see, and here you can see the full height of the building, the first story, one-story building. You can see the diamond motif on the soffit there, and then you can see these rather bizarre skylights. They're designed to catch both the winter and summer sun, and have mirrors inside them that allow the light to come in, but not the heat in the summer, and allow both heat and light in the winter. And here now walking around, now we're up to the roof of the building, and these are these, I think there's 17 of these solar collectors up on the roof. If you notice from the landscaping, Joe, it's very carefully maintained, beautifully landscaped on the site. They clearly take a lot of care with the building. This is the parking lot entrance. It's on the opposite side of the building. And you can see the Fairfax County Redevelopment and Housing Authority, again, the diamonds. And that little oval you see to the left of the two doors there, that is what you're seeing in the right picture. This won a design award from Virginia Society, the American Institute of Architects in 1982. The building was actually completed in 1981, so it's just turning 40. I sent a lot of this information on to VDHR, and VDHR was interested in the building. And then when it came out that the Housing Authority was using federal funding in the redevelopment of this site and another affordable housing site just down the hill from this, the federal funding was involved, and that triggered the 106 responsibility. And so that's what's now beginning. Oops, sorry. And then on the inside, it has a high degree of integrity. It has original furnishings still in place. Again, you see that diamond motif, original doors, and including some built-in furniture. It's the entrance lobby there on the left from the street side, and on the right, that is the entrance lobby from the parking lot side. And that's a door that goes from the lobby into some of the office space. It was all open plan offices. And through the borrow light, you can see above the transom, past the transom, the door there, you can see the underside of one of those overhead skylights that are in the building. This is written up by Ben Forgey, who used to be the architecture critic for the Washington Post. And when he talks about that, by the way, it was designed by an architect by the name of Walter Roberts. And he says that it's a no-nonsense one-story building that provides for open office spaces. The building is burrowed into the ground for energy efficiency. Its most conspicuous visual feature is a sort of moonscape modern system of sun-catching towers that rise from the grass-planted roof of the building. But the system seems to work. The towers, supplemented by an interior system of mirrors, are oriented to absorb light and energy from both the summer and winter suns, and the building's southern facade with the colonnade supporting a concrete entablature and surrounding a segmented arch portico is nicely done. It is worth noting that 2 of the 3 buildings discussed here, that is in this article, were commissioned by the same client, the Fairfax County Redevelopment and Housing Authority, an unusual and praiseworthy circumstance. It is not often that a government agency takes a lead in seeking architectural excellence. And 40 years later, they're going to throw it out.
A little saddening then, John, if their program talks about housing preservation and yet they can't preserve their own building. They came and presented at the task force and threw the preservation word around a lot, and I was like,
Yeah, I was astonished at the quality of the maintenance of the building for, you know, a 40-year-old county building that the county wants to get rid of. Clearly, somebody cares for this building. Somebody cares for the landscape. The landscape is beautiful.
We really have an assault on brutalism in this county.
Yeah. So anyway, that was my little presentation.
So I guess, Laura, you mentioned that this is a 106 review. Are we participating in this one, or is just the county participating? Are you just participating from the county, or is the ARB participating too?
I'm just participating from the county. So because we didn't elevate it 3 years ago, the Heritage Resources Group we didn't put it in the comp plan. Once again, we didn't put it in the comp plan. It didn't make it in the rezoning. So it was kind of like we didn't have much teeth to kind of put it in because it's a newer 1980s building. And at that point, we didn't know the significance of it either. So I've been working with BDHR and giving her comments about what we would like to see from it. If the ARB feels they want to be a stakeholder in it, I think that's appropriate. Or if the ARB kind of wants to put together, ARB meaning John, put together a statement, that we can send for consideration. I will say they're trying to move at lightning speed on this and trying to pull the demo permits as early as September. So I'm not sure how far we are.
I mean, I guess so. It is going to be an adverse effect. So is there an agreement that's going to be developed?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, documentation is always wonderful, John, but I would love, since the county keeps lopping over brutalist architecture, maybe they should look forward looking and help us find or list more of our brutalist or more of our, modern architecture in the county. Maybe we need to get some funding for some listings.
Well, one of the things that struck me as unusual is they're hoping that some of this complex will be affordable, but this end of the complex, the same developer, will be student housing. And, students need robustly constructed buildings. I mean, students are hard on buildings. And this is one. And it's full of things that I think a contemporary college student would love about saving energy and being responsive to solar conditions and all that sort of stuff. And it has big open spaces, which it's like you're going to have this could be their little community center. I mean, in the master plan discussion today, they were talking about when you have new residential developments for the but if they're looking at demo permits in September, I don't think they're going to be interested in talking about alternative uses for the.
Yeah, they're in, if you want, I'm working with Chelsea Jeffries at BDHR. I can reach out to her and let her know if you want to be a stakeholder or
consulting party.
Consulting party, or you can forward me your comments about it and I can include it. And I can convey them to her as well.
I just think about the more practical. If it's a foregone conclusion that it's gonna be demolished, we're talking mitigation. I think John's points about documentation are always great because once they're gone, they're gone. But I try to look at what's a broader mitigation too, which is something like, is there support for interns or folks to help draft? Now, if it really was hey, Heritage was not able to get a hold of this in the time we wanted to, how do we prevent that in the future? What can the county, as mitigation, put forward to help benefit other properties of this type? You'd think I do this for my daily job, though.
Well, and that's, I would just need that specifically. Like if you have creative ideas about what we could get out of it. We've talked about, high level about revolving fund, some sort of revolving fund and something like that. Or if it's a contribution to History Commission or proper or something, something like that.
Staff support to History Commission to do nominations. I'm all for it.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. I'm like, it's something like that if we could get that, kind of creativity.
I think we need to do a think tank study with John so we can find all the rest of the brutalist buildings in the county so we can know where they are and keep that list safe. Because I every time you show me one, John, that I just never been there, but it's just tragic to me.
Well, some of them are in Reston. Some of them are in other places in the county. So, that's the biggest problem we have is we do not have a comprehensive county survey of buildings. That's the biggest issue. So this Reston survey is huge in that step. If we can keep that ball rolling and get other larger areas of the county surveyed. But yes.
Okay. Thanks, John, a lot. I really appreciate that tour.
If I could add one more thing, and
Go ahead,
it's not
sir.
just brutalist buildings. It's not just brutalist buildings. It is buildings constructed in the great expansion of Fairfax County from the 1950s through the 1970s. And so any Fairfax County government building, because that's what they're beginning to tear down. They tore down the Massey building. They redid the Burkholder building. The police administration building is under threat. This is under threat. I mean, they're tearing down their heritage that they were creating just 40 years ago. Now, I've been working with Blake Edwards in the VDHR office, and he and I went through copies of AIA Virginia publications and all, and we copied down every building that won a design award from between 50 and 60 years ago. And they now have that in Richmond, but they don't have anybody to enter it into VCRIS, which is the statewide database. And so they have the same issue we do, is yeah, we know these things are there, and says, yeah, there it is, and it's not officially listed or cited or entered into a database or anything. And so the risk continues. We know the stuff is there, we can see it, we can talk about it, but nobody officially knows that it is potentially historic.
Hey, John, this is Joe Pompey. Hey, I just asked a question. Yes, landscaping looks great. Thanks for taking those pictures. How much soil is on the roof? Do you know?
Right now, it's not grass. Right now, it's gravel. And I don't know how deep that gravel is. There is no plant materials on the actual roof that I could discern.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
John, another point too, they're going through a capital facilities policy plan rewrite. And we've kind of stuck our foot in that door for Heritage Resources as well. So hopefully that'll address some of the county facility plan, like the libraries and fire stations and, government buildings that county-owned government buildings. That
and schools.
And schools, right. Yeah.
Well, thanks again, John, and I will try to get you some info, Laura. All
Sure.
right. Rezoning cases. So I guess this one's more of a, do we have any comments for you on what you gave us?
I did not give you anything, so you probably won't have any comments because I just didn't get to it this week. But if you have anything that you hear of, let me know, and I am happy to do the research and outreach for you. And
All right.
surveys is the same thing.
Surveys, I was going to say, the only thing we did was we did the letters in support of the African American survey, and beyond that, no more updates there. Any other updates or reports? All right. Correspondence announcements?
And then Chris, if you wanted to talk about the August ARB meeting, that
I was going to make it new business.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
I had it on mine for notation of
fine.
new business.
That's fine.
So hearing no correspondence announcements or old business with new business. So I have a topic to bring up with the ARB regarding our August meeting. Laura reached out to me, and then I reached out and talked with Jason a little bit about this. As we all know, Nicole left us following the last meeting. And so now Laura is left carrying her current torch plus Nicole's torch, as well as the lofty list of HODs that we have going on right now. And she reached out and asked, due to the kind of burden that's on staff right now with all these items, if we might consider foregoing our August meeting and providing staff with a month basically break to give her some chance to get ahead on things. This is also give them a chance to get a leg on hiring too, which is another thing they're trying to do as well. The ARB obviously has the flexibility to change our meetings. So I thought, given all the constraints, it seemed like a reasonable proposal. Also, apparently a lot of boards and commissions take August off, just not us. So Jason and I talked, and we both thought it was a very acceptable idea, and I wanted to bring it up to the whole board, because if so, we would need to make a decision soon so that Laura could obviously advise and put notice out, because we might see a larger quantity of submissions either before or after that. Like some of the folks we saw today may very well definitely come in July or August just to get their submissions in, you know, so that, or sorry, July rather than waiting till August. So I would entertain any discussion on that. I saw some head nods already from folks. And saw thumbs up.
Yeah, thumbs up. I was going to say, like, Arlington, they're in recess. You know, other commissions are on recess in August.
I totally think I'd never heard of before, an August recess. That might also give us some time to think about, Laura, you know, when we're starting to talking about potential hybrid options too. But again, it gives Laura some breathing room, and considering it really is her with some support from Denise we're relying on right now, I thought it made sense. So I'm glad to see it seems to have everyone else. Well, I think we need a motion to do that. So I'd entertain a motion to put our August meeting, to take a recess and to cancel our August meeting.
I'll make a motion that we take a recess and cancel our August meeting this year.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Zellman. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none. There we go. Motion passes. Laura, hopefully that gives you at least a few hours of breathing room. She told me it was like 10 to 15 hours of time just in meeting prep that she uses. So we alone saved her a little bit of significant time right there.
My mental sanity thoroughly appreciates that. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right.
And one more thing, if you get pushback from the county about no, you have to have 12 meetings in a year, we could just somehow all not be available that night and not have a quorum, and you'd achieve the same end.
It's like calling in sick, right? On your vacation,
Yeah.
but right before your vacation, right? I hear you.
Right. We had a sick out.
Well, we are recording this, so you know, it's fine. Yeah, well, I don't think it's going to be a problem, but I'll confirm.
All right. Otherwise, if there is no other new business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion adjourns. Always in favor, or always in order. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. All right. All those opposed, yeah, keeping quiet. That's what I thought. All right. The motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Have a good month.
everyone.
Yeah.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good
Good night, cicada guy.
Happy Father's Day as well.